And we're live.
There has to be.
Okay, one sec, everybody. We just got to finish getting things set up, and then we'll be able to get started here. So please be patient. And we're live. About chat. Live chat. Do you play any video games? Yeah, I do. I play Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, and Path of Exile right now. All right, we should be all set. Yeah, I was out of town for a week, so no live streams while I was out of town. All right, let's talk to Saint. Saint, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, why can't I hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, now I can hear you. Yeah, how's it going?
I'm good.
Glad to hear it. Do you believe in a God?
Yeah.
Which one?
Christianity. God of Christianity.
Okay, and what would you say is like the most convincing argument you could present me that would convince me of that?
For God's existence or for Christianity?
Either or.
So I'll go with God existence. Just generally.
Sure. Yeah. So what do you have in mind?
I can set some premises, then see if you agree with them.
Yeah, that's fine. Can you do me one favor? Your audio is a little bit on the quiet side. I don't know if you're just far from your mic or what, but just a little hard to hear.
My mic kind of sucks, I guess. I don't know.
I think you're okay. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, lay down some premises.
All conscious beings we observe come from conscious causes.
Sorry, can you repeat that? There's like a plane flying overhead.
All conscious beings come from conscious causes.
Okay, what's premise 2?
Humans are conscious.
Yep, and premise and conclusion, or premise 3, or?
Therefore, we have a conscious cause.
Sorry, I was just writing it down. Yeah, okay, so why should I accept premise 1?
Well, you would need evidence to the contrary. There's no evidence to the contrary.
That's not really how that works. If you're making an argument, you have to present evidence for the premises if they're not, self-evident, for example.
The evidence would be me, you, and literally every person to ever exist.
Do you think that evolution is true?
I guess depending on what you mean by it, I don't have a problem with it.
Do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
See, again, what you mean by evolution, because, like, for example, sperm, right? Sperm itself is not conscious, but that's a process of the...
What does that have to do with evolution?
Because, like, evolution can be true in the sense that I believe that God can set up an environment to where consciousness can arise, but one part of the process does not, refute the entirety of it.
So you're saying, well, look, so we have evidence that there's at least a part in the chain of the human conscious experience where the things that gave rise to us were not conscious, right?
Yeah, that's why I use sperm as an example.
Right. So suffice it to say, it looks like we have evidence against the first premise.
No, we don't. What is the evidence that...
I mean, as an example, you said sperm, I said, like amoebas or whatever, bacteria that were not conscious that gave rise to humans.
Wait, how do you know that in itself? So there's a point in the process, right, where you have to make this leap from like non-conscious matter to conscious matter, right? Science cannot bridge that gap. So why do you assume that?
Why do I assume what? I mean, like, do you think that amoebas are conscious?
I'm not fully sure what an amoeba is.
Like it's a type of... Okay, do you think that bacteria are conscious?
No.
Okay, well, I mean, if you go back far enough in our evolutionary history, we were all not we, but our ancestors were single-celled organisms, which, if you don't think that they're conscious, then it seems like conscious things, us, came from non-conscious things, single-celled organisms.
Yeah, you would say that, but what's the evidence that conscious matter alone produced a consciousness?
That wasn't the claim of premise 1. Premise 1 is all conscious beings come from conscious causes, but we're looking at conscious beings coming from single-celled organisms, the single-celled organisms cause the conscious beings, insofar as if the single-celled organisms didn't exist, the conscious beings wouldn't exist because they're the ancestors. And so again, I don't know what other sense of come from you mean.
You're explaining part of the process. How do you know that there wasn't consciousness behind that itself?
Okay, so then can you elaborate what you mean by come from?
Produced. Like,
well,
for example,
okay, so but the non-conscious thing, the bacteria, produced the conscious thing, us.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
That's standard evolutionary theory.
Wait, what's the proof of that?
So are we now debating whether or not it's true that humans evolved from, single-celled organisms?
That's a claim you're making. Because,
well, no, I'm just asking, like, are you rejecting that? Like, is that something that's in contention right now?
What exactly?
That humans evolved from single-celled organisms if you go back far enough.
I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that the consciousness was not produced from the organism itself without prior consciousness.
Well, no, so we are conscious, right?
Yes. And we
were produced by the single-celled organisms.
By prior consciousness. So if you go down the line, you're going to...
Well, wait a minute. Are the single-celled organisms conscious?
The thing in question is whether or not they were produced by consciousness. That's why I use sperm as an example.
Well, no, that's not the thing in question. The thing in question is whether we are produced by conscious things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so I gave you an example, which is backed up by evolutionary science, that we are produced by non-conscious things, single-celled organisms, or perhaps multicellular organisms, or whatever.
Okay,
yeah.
So you can see the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does a single-cell organism that's not conscious give rise to consciousness?
That's kind of irrelevant for the point that I'm making.
No, it is. It is
the mechanism of the mechanism of how isn't relevant for the statement that this refutes the first premise.
It doesn't. So how do you know that it did?
The first premise is just that humans, conscious beings, came from conscious causes. But I gave you an example of human conscious beings coming from non-conscious organisms.
Okay, but you said you don't know the how. So how do you know that it happened?
Do you know the how? Like, under your worldview, you don't know the how either.
No, wait. What do you mean? So under my worldview, the conscious came from consciousness.
Yeah, but how?
What do you mean how? Because it has the properties necessary to produce consciousness.
Okay, I can just say that the organic biological organism has the properties to produce consciousness.
How do you know that?
I could ask you the same question. You just asserted it, so I did the same thing.
I can look at the properties I have and then say what produced me had those same properties. What you're saying is that, how do I know what?
How do you know that what produced you has the same properties?
That's the worldview. That's the logical inference.
Well, wait a minute, but you have to back up the first premise. This is your argument.
The first premise comes from our experience. Like
our
the logical argument I just gave.
So our experience is, at least in part, the natural world, and the evidence that we have from the natural world says that we came from non-conscious entities.
Well, we can get to the natural world, but still, on this particular topic, have you ever experienced non-conscious matter producing conscious matter?
I mean, yeah, I suppose. I would say that a single-celled organism. I would say that a single cell, like
But you don't have evidence
me.
You don't have evidence of that.
No. I mean me. So, like, I was at one point not conscious. I was made of matter. So the matter was not conscious. No, I'm talking about like the sperm combined with the egg, so the zygote, right?
Well, that's my point. Is that the sperm itself, all that stuff came from a conscious being. So it
but that's irrelevant. You asked, have you ever seen conscious matter come from non-conscious matter? And I gave you an example.
Yeah, but so I don't think you understand the critique.
It doesn't matter if that non-conscious matter came from something conscious prior. That's not what your premise is. That's not what your premise is. I'm sorry, that's not your premise.
My first
Your premise is that all conscious beings come from conscious causes. However, I gave you an example of a conscious being, me, coming from a non-conscious cause.
Wait, no. The cause is not the sperm. The cause is the being that produced the sperm.
So would you say that, wait a minute, how far back do we have to go before we get to the cause?
You're talking about the ultimate cause?
Well, I don't know. You're the one who has the word cause in your premise, so you have to clarify what you mean.
When I say conscious
do you mean ultimate cause? Do you mean proximal cause? What do you mean?
This argument leads to an ultimate cause, right?
Well, no, I'm asking, what do you mean? When you say premise one, what do you mean by cause? Do you mean ultimate cause, or do you mean proximal cause, or do you mean something in between?
Immediate cause.
So then the immediate cause of me is a non-conscious zygote.
No, it isn't. It's a person that has
that's the immediate cause.
So what you're doing is
immediate cause is the thing right
cause.
Before, right?
So when I say
that's what immediate cause means. Well, no. I mean, my
Semantics
parents caused the zygote, but then the zygote caused me. So the zygote is the immediate cause or the proximal cause.
So the zygote came from consciousness.
Sure.
So then my premise stands.
No, because your premise is that all conscious beings come from conscious causes. I just gave you an example of a non-conscious cause that gave rise to consciousness. Just because there's another conscious thing further back in the chain is irrelevant.
No, it is relevant. That's literally my first premise. You're trying to get around it by saying, well, the immediate cause was a sperm cell. No, the immediate cause was
I didn't say that. I said
parents.
It's the zygote. But no, I mean, that's just, I don't think you know what immediate cause means then. Immediate cause means semantics. Like, I mean, look, if you're going to make an argument, at least be precise with what you say.
Yeah, I think you know what I mean when I say immediate cause. Obviously.
What do you mean?
Obviously.
Because it's not the proximal cause. It's not the proximal cause. It's not the cause that, it's not the direct cause right before in the causal chain. You mean something slightly earlier, but not all the way earlier. Not like something even earlier, which is like a bacteria, right?
Okay, could you be produced without your parents having the sperm?
Probably not. But I also couldn't be produced without the bacteria reproducing. So
then your parents are sufficient for the sperm itself. So you can't just eliminate your
sure, and the bacteria are sufficient for my parents.
Okay, but the thing in question is whether consciousness can give rise to, I mean, non-conscious matter can give rise to conscious matter.
Well, yeah, and if we go back, if you're fine not going back, I was pointing to the zygote, not to sperm. Listening is hard. But if you're fine not going back just to the proximal cause being the zygote, then, and you're fine going back to some earlier point in the causal chain, what's stopping me from going all the way back to the bacteria and saying, well, the bacteria weren't conscious and we are conscious now, so you have a non-conscious thing giving rise to a conscious thing? Because
you have zero evidence that was the case.
I have zero evidence that humans arose evolutionarily from single-celled organisms?
No, because you're trying to argue that.
Wait, sorry, did you say no, I don't have evidence of that?
No, I'm saying what you just said is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
Did bacteria give rise to humans?
Sure.
Okay, so then are bacteria non-conscious?
No, but that's a part of the process. That's the point.
Well, but are bacteria non-conscious?
I would say no.
Okay, if bacteria are non-conscious and they give rise to conscious beings.
Wait, no. How do you know that the consciousness you have came from the bacteria?
I came from the bacteria, right?
Okay, but your consciousness did or did it not?
Is the consciousness part of me?
Sure.
Okay, if the consciousness is part of me and I came from that bacteria, then the consciousness came from the bacteria.
How do you know that?
That's just the, I guess that would be like transitivity of, not transitivity, that would just be inclusion. It's not a law of inclusion, but that's just set inclusion, right? If something is if something is part of me and I was caused by something, then that thing that's part of me was also caused by that thing. Right?
No. That's a fallacy.
Where's the fallacy?
Just because part of you, I forgot, let me actually go with what the fallacy is, but it's part of you, just because something's part of you doesn't explain the whole of you. So sure, it can explain part, but it doesn't mean that it's
no, that's irrelevant, not really related to the thing I said. The thing I said is that, look, consciousness is part of me. So whatever caused the entirety of me also caused consciousness.
Well, no, that's the fallacy though.
What's the fallacy?
That just because it caused part of you, that it can explain.
No, it didn't cause part of me. The bacteria caused the entirety of me.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so then you have to explain to me how that is, because it's not conscious, it can produce consciousness.
I have to give you a causal mechanism? Why do I have to give you that?
Because then you have no justification for what you're saying.
So we have very strong justification. Sorry, one more time?
Otherwise, I can just assert God, and then I don't have to give a justification.
Look, I have evidence that humans come from bacteria. I don't think that you're doubting that, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so this is not an assertion to say that humans come from bacteria, or not just some random assertion. It's backed up by evidence.
I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning the consciousness.
And so is the question. So is the claim that that without God, consciousness couldn't have arisen via evolutionary processes? Is that the claim that you're making?
Well, you would have no justification for believing such a thing.
Why not? I mean, like, you can believe that things can cause other things without knowing the mechanism of the cause. There's no issue with that.
But
there's no that's not true. You can still have totally good justification. For example, let's say that
I'm not saying that you would have no justification for believing such a thing. I'm saying you making this leap, for example, non-conscious matter producing conscious matter. There's no justification for how that can happen. You just have to just assume.
Sure, there is.
Okay, what's the justification?
Well, so we are
matter?
so bacteria are non-conscious matter. We agree on that. We are conscious matter. We also have the entirety of evolutionary biology that backs up that we came from that non-conscious matter. And considering that we are conscious matter and we came from non-conscious matter, the entirety of evolutionary biology gives us that evidence.
No, because you're assuming that this supposed bacteria alone is what produced you. How do you know that there's not something else?
Oh, well, so generally we take the simplest hypothesis that explains the data.
How
and unless you have some additional reason to think that, well, maybe this hypothesis doesn't account for this extra thing, unless you have some reason to think, okay, so how do you know? How do you know it doesn't account for it?
Because literally, again, I've studied this stuff. Science has no explanation. They call it the hard problem of consciousness.
Not knowing the causal mechanism does not mean that there's no explanation, right?
Okay, so I'm not saying there isn't.
And let me just give you an example.
I think there is an explanation, by the way.
By the way, you can absolutely know that smoking causes lung cancer without knowing how smoking causes lung cancer. You can study that people who smoke develop lung cancer and not know anything about the mechanism and still have justification and a good understanding that indeed it does cause lung cancer, right?
Okay.
So just because you don't have a causative mechanism doesn't mean that you don't have a justification for the belief or a justification for the view.
I'm not saying that you don't have, or that there can't be a justification. I believe the justification is prior consciousness, prior life. You're making this logical leap of non-life, non-conscious matter producing such
right,
a thing.
And we know that non-conscious matter gave rise to us, and we are conscious matter.
Yeah, but
now,
again,
if you're saying that that's insufficient, if you're saying that actually this is impossible without a God being, the burden of proof is on you to demonstrate that.
Wait, say that again?
If you're saying, so we have all this evidence that says humans came from bacteria. They weren't really bacteria, but for the sake of argument, humans came from single-celled organisms. We have all of this evidence that says that this is the case. The human brain developed, etc. All of this very complicated stuff developed about the human. Now, if you're saying that that explanation is insufficient, that it requires some extra feature that can't be accounted for, then you need to provide evidence for that extra thing that can account for it.
So are you asking for empirical evidence?
Or any evidence, really.
I would argue there's philosophical evidence.
Sure, what's the philosophical evidence?
That because of the, what is the word? I forgot what the word's called. I had a brain freaking fart. Properties. The properties that we have within our brain and our being itself, it's more logical to think that it came from things that also possesses those properties as opposed to not.
How do you figure that it's more logical? Like, what deductive reasoning are you using?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
When people say it's more logical, what they're really trying to say is that, you can logically deduce from some set of premises to a conclusion that XYZ is true, right? That's what you mean by more logical. At least that's what's meant. You can't just say it's more logical and then just terminate the thought there.
How is it not? How does it lack explanatory power?
You didn't give an explanation. You just said it's more logical.
No, I said because if we dissect the properties that we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a mind, thinking, all this other stuff.
Yep, we have properties.
And we say what produced us also has those things. How is that not more logical than saying that something that doesn't have those properties produced us?
You keep saying more logical. If you're going to make if you're going to try to make a logical argument, you actually have to present the argument. You can't just say, well, it is more logical. Because otherwise I could just say, oh, well, it's more logical that, given that our brains have certain properties and those properties are things that are matter, then it's more logical that we come from material things than non-material things. You can't just say it's more logical, right? You have to actually give an argument.
This is all inclusive in my argument that I first stated, which is
but you still have never defended the first premise, right?
Yes, I have. Literally, the evidence me and you are proof of that.
Wait, the evidence that we came from conscious causes, but you didn't actually indicate where in the causal chain you're putting the final cause. If you're putting the final cause at God, well, then you're just begging the question. If you're putting the cause that you're referring to in premise one somewhere else between the proximal cause and the final cause, now you're just being arbitrary, right? I can put that cause somewhere where it ends at something that's not conscious, and you can put the cause somewhere where it ends at something that is conscious.
Okay, I think so. When my argument with my first premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was based on experience and pure logic.
Well, no, but you have to. So look, you keep saying pure logic. I don't know if you're doing that, but it depends on where you want to put the cause. And if you're putting the cause in an arbitrary place so that it always terminates at some conscious thing rather than an unconscious thing, you're just making an arbitrary decision. You're not actually using deductive reasoning.
I don't know. So where I put the cause at, let's just say this: you were produced by something. For some odd reason, you want to stop at the zygote or whatever it's called.
The zygote or the bacteria or like the fish or whatever. We can stop wherever. There's a lot of different places where you can stop in the causal chain that's not conscious.
The cause of you was your parents. The cause of your parents was their parents. You go back far.
Why are you picking that arbitrary place in the causal chain?
What arbitrary place?
I mean, the zygote is between me and my parents, right?
Exactly, but it still came forth from your parents.
Yeah, and the parents came forth from a zygote.
Exactly, but also came forth from prior consciousness.
Yeah, you're acting as if the zygote right, you're doing an arbitrary thing. Right, okay, so imagine that you have a chain.
You are too, apparently.
I'm critiquing your argument by indicating that it's arbitrary.
But there would be no zygote if it wasn't for your parents.
Look, so
you would not be if it wasn't for your parents.
I'm at one end of the chain, right? I'm a conscious being, right? And then as you go back in time, there's just a whole bunch of different things that you could call distinct things that gave rise to me. So if you go back one step, you probably get to like a zygote. If you go back another step, you get to my parents. If you go back another step, you get to their zygotes. If you go back another step, you get to their parents, and so on. And eventually you'll end up at some animal that's not conscious. And then if you go back even further, you'll end up at some, single-celled organism that's not conscious. And if you go back even further, things get a little bit vague. It's not clear, but probably you end up at some sort of non-living organic matter. And then if you go back further, you end up with like less sophisticated non-living organic matter and so on and so forth. The point is you're picking an arbitrary place to look at what the cause of me is. You're picking at the places just where you end up at a conscious thing. Whereas I could just as equally arbitrarily pick a place where you end at something that's not conscious. Where? And so the entirety of your first premise, the evidence for your first premise relies on arbitrary choices, which means it's not evidence at all.
Where would you start to disprove me?
It's not my burden to disprove you. It's your burden to provide an argument that isn't arbitrary.
Okay, but you're saying that I'm picking an arbitrary place. How is that so?
Because I just indicated how many different places you could have chosen to pick for the cause of me, and you solely picked the conscious ones as your evidence, whereas you could have just as easily picked the non-conscious ones as your as counter evidence, and it would be like equally arbitrary.
The zygote is like probably it only proves my point even further because the zygote was produced.
Is the zygote conscious? Oh wait, how does that prove your point at all?
Because if it was
zygote's not conscious, so it's unrelated to your premise.
Yeah, but if it was produced by consciousness, and my argument is that consciousness produces consciousness, just stopping at that point does not refute my argument.
Then why not just keep going all the way back to the beginning of life? Well, at the beginning of life, we had something non-conscious. Exactly. We have some single-celled organism, and that thing gave rise to humans.
If we keep doing that,
then we end up at something that's not conscious, definitely.
What produced the single-celled organism could just be equally as produced as a sperm cell, for example, which means that it can be produced by consciousness.
Right. So all you're doing is you're just avoiding the places in the causal chain that are not conscious, which is why your argument's arbitrary.
What you're doing is avoiding the parts that produce the
to be clear,
itself.
I'm happy to accept that consciousness can give rise to that conscious causes can give rise to conscious beings, but also non-conscious things can give rise to conscious beings. And it just depends on where you pick in the causal chain where you call the cause.
Consciousness, though, but that was produced by prior consciousness, though, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, there would have been a first conscious thing, a first conscious living organism on Earth, right? And that wouldn't have been produced by something prior conscious.
How do you know that?
Well, I mean, you've already agreed that single-celled organisms are not conscious. We are. So that means that somewhere along the line there was a first conscious being, right?
Okay, but how do you explain the fact that you've never experienced a non-conscious matter producing conscious matter? How do you know that the cause of that bacterial
I gave you an example. I already gave you an example of the zygote being non-conscious matter, which produced conscious matter.
Oh my, I think we're running in circles.
I'm sure. Now, here's another critique of premise one. You say all conscious beings come from conscious causes. Is God a conscious being?
Yeah.
Does God come from a conscious cause?
we didn't really get to the end of my argument because I was going to say this leads to an infinite regress, and then we need to stop a stopping point.
Right. So do you agree that not all conscious beings come from conscious causes?
The point of, I mean, I could have ran the argument in different ways. If you want to critique that particular part, then sure.
Okay, so we agree that premise 1 is false.
All dependent conscious beings. I mean, I didn't really.
All dependent conscious beings? Okay. Yeah. So if you want to change premise 1, we can change it. All dependent
I can
conscious beings come from conscious causes.
I didn't get to the end of my argument, which would have led to an infinite.
Well, I know we were talking about the first stage of your argument, and the first stage of your argument already failed, so you had to change premise 1.
It didn't fail.
Well, it did. The version of the premise that you offered was false, at least in both of our worldviews, right?
Have you ever experienced a conscious being being produced by a non-conscious being?
I've given you an example already.
What is the evidence that happened?
The zygote. What's the evidence that I was a zygote?
Wow.
I mean, but anyway, you've already agreed that your original version of premise 1 is false because God is a conscious being that doesn't come from a conscious cause. So if you want to change the first premise, you can, and we can talk about that.
No, I don't see how you think that a zygote helps you. I genuinely don't.
A zygote is a non-conscious being that gave rise to a conscious being. Like, obviously.
Yeah, but it carried the potential for consciousness because it.
Oh, okay, so wait, but that wasn't in your premise. Your premise is that all conscious beings have conscious causes, but that's, we have a zygote, which is not a conscious cause.
Was the cause of the zygote consciousness?
Maybe, but that's irrelevant for the first premise.
Wait, maybe? Wait, what is your evidence that it wasn't?
I never said that it wasn't.
So what do you mean by maybe?
What I mean is that whether it is or not is irrelevant for the premise.
So you're just playing semantics then?
This isn't semantics. You're trying to make an argument, and your argument is flawed as originally expressed.
My argument is very basic. Conscious beings.
Well, your first premise isn't. Your first premise is false.
Or a zygote.
Yes. No, your first premise is false. Yeah.
You point
there's a cause. In fact, we don't even have to, we can just use the language that you originally used, which is they come from conscious causes, and we can all I need to do is find one cause in the causal chain that's not conscious, and I can just point to the zygote or the sperm or whatever. None of those are conscious, and those are all causes.
What you're going to point to,
they might not be immediate causes, they might not be proximal causes, they might not be ultimate causes, but they are causes.
What you're going to point to is a part in the process that didn't obviously cause itself.
But it doesn't have to. That's irrelevant for the first premise. It doesn't have to have caused itself.
Okay, how about this? How do you know that the information stored in, let's say, for example, the zygote doesn't have the capability to give rise to consciousness?
Whether it does or not is irrelevant. If you think that the zygote is not conscious, then that's enough.
Okay, yeah. We're not
unless you think the zygote is conscious.
For some reason, we're not going to get over this hump because for some reason you think that it matters that
it does. I mean, your first, if you're going to give a premise,
it literally came from consciousness.
Well, yeah. The point is your claim is that all conscious beings come from conscious causes. The zygote is a cause of a being, but it's not a conscious cause, and it gives rise to a conscious being.
It's a cause in the causal chain.
Yep.
But it's not.
That's enough to make it a cause.
It's not the ultimate cause of that.
That wasn't your premise. Didn't involve ultimate cause.
Okay, so if it does it change your position?
Okay, so are we changing the premise now from all dependent conscious beings come from, or maybe we say have ultimate conscious causes or something like that?
What do you? Because we're going to say now, what does it mean to be ultimate? What do you mean by that?
Well, no, ultimate. The ultimate cause of something is typically the final cause, or like the cause that is not itself caused by something earlier.
Again,
is that what you mean? Well, I assume that's what you mean by ultimate cause.
How about let's do this?
Sure.
In this case of the parents, what would that be, and what would that be defined as?
It would just be one of the causes in the causal chain. It's not the proximal cause. It's not the ultimate cause. It's not the immediate cause.
Exactly. That's why
it's just a cause.
Go anywhere. So because
it's not a particular cause.
Okay, because we're stuck on this particular part, we're never going to get anywhere.
Well, I'm stuck on this because the first premise was like lethal or fatally flawed, right?
No, it isn't.
I mean, we've already now established that there are two reasons why it was false, and you've had to change it now twice.
No, it's not false. You're just playing semantics, basically.
Playing semantics is how you talk about arguments. If you're calling it playing semantics when I'm proving why your argument is false, then sure, you can call it playing semantics if you want.
Playing semantics is functionally equivalent to just playing skeptic when evidence is right in your
That's
face.
not what, semantics means, investigating the meanings of words, right?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with being skeptical or whatever.
No, I said it's a functional equivalent to a.
It's not equivalent. I'm examining your premise critically and establishing how it doesn't work, how it fails.
It doesn't fail. You're just ignoring the obvious. Whenever you try to point out this supposed zygote, that's literally just a step in the process of a being being created.
Okay, so we agree it's a cause, right?
You're ignoring the fact that it came from consciousness.
Do we agree that the zygote is a cause of the person?
I don't even know when you say cause, what do you mean by that?
Typically, what is meant by cause is something like, if that thing were not there, and we're talking about sufficient causes here, if that thing were not there, then the subsequent effect would not occur. Meaning, so at least in that notion, the zygote is obviously a cause, because if the zygote were not in existence, then the subsequent human would not exist.
But I mean, again, if the parent wasn't in existence, then neither would the
right. So I agree that the parent is a cause for the zygote, and the zygote is a cause for the human. But if the zygote is a cause, what do you mean a cause on its own? It is a sufficient cause. If the zygote weren't there, the human wouldn't be there. You mean ultimate cause.
You're acting as if it's not literally produced by something.
That's irrelevant for your first premise. Your first premise is not that all conscious beings either are caused by conscious causes or they're caused by unconscious causes that are also caused by conscious beings. That wasn't your premise.
When I said conscious causes, I was referring to the thing that produced them. You wouldn't say the zygote.
Yeah, and we are produced by the zygote, right?
Not alone.
I mean, in some sense alone, yeah.
No,
like we develop wholly from the zygote.
Now I know you're playing devil's advocate.
Well, no, I mean, in some sense, we are what the zygote becomes. Now, does the zygote need like an environment that is conducive to growth? Yeah, of course. If you mean that the zygote needs like conscious intervention, no, of course it doesn't.
What exactly is a zygote? What exactly is that?
A zygote is it's like a single-celled or very few-celled fertilized human egg, right?
Okay, so basically like a sperm.
No, it's not at all like a sperm. It's what happens after the sperm hits the egg, and then it starts reproducing, or starts, undergoing mitosis.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, basically the same ballpark of sperm, because it's still ultimately produced by consciousness.
Sure. Again, not relevant to your premise.
Get you out of the first premise? It does matter to my premise.
No, your first premise was not.
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean, though.
Okay, so then do you want to rephrase your first premise again to all dependent conscious beings either have conscious causes or their unconscious causes themselves have conscious causes? Is that your claim? Is that what you want your first premise to be?
If that helps you, sure.
Okay, if that's what you, so if we're changing the premise again, then can we at least agree that your original premise as expressed was false?
It's not false. You're just playing devil's advocate and semantics with it. But sure, if that helps you, then sure.
Okay. Now, so then the question is what if we look back in evolutionary history? Well, we have dependent conscious beings, you and me, supposing that we are dependent, which is, contested, but supposing that we're dependent, then the claim is that they either have conscious causes. Well, I have a conscious cause, sure. We could say that my parents are an example of a conscious cause, or they're unconscious causes, like the zygotes themselves have conscious causes. Now, the trouble is if we run this back, we look at my parents, their cause, their parents, their cause, and so on and so forth. Eventually, we'll end up at non-conscious causes. And then your first premise is then asserting that, well, it does have non-conscious causes, the first conscious thing, but really those non-conscious causes were in fact caused by something conscious, which is begging the question. It is assuming your conclusion that there is a non-conscious cause that allowed the bacteria to give rise to conscious beings, and so you've reached a circular argument.
No, you're basically saying that I'm just assuming my conclusion.
You are, yeah.
When I'm not.
No, I mean you are.
If my first premise is true, then my conclusion is true.
Right, but your first premise, in order to explain the manifestation of consciousness on Earth, from non-conscious organisms, you have to assert that indeed those non-conscious organisms actually do have a conscious cause.
Wait, no, because
and that's your conclusion.
If my first premise is true, then
yeah, but your first premise, in order for your first premise is true, you have to assert that the bacteria have a conscious cause, which is that's the claim.
The first premise, it leads to a causal chain, which leads us to this. You can even say
right. So look, let's look at the bacteria. So let's try to apply your premise to the bacteria. All dependent conscious beings have either have conscious causes, or their unconscious causes themselves have conscious causes. So what's being referred to is the unconscious causes themselves have conscious causes, the unconscious causes being the bacteria. And then premise one is asserting that those unconscious causes, the bacteria, itself has a conscious cause. Now, why on earth would I grant that the bacteria have a conscious cause?
Because you've never seen non-conscious matter produce conscious matter.
Right, but I've never seen
you have
conscious matter produce bacteria either. So like primordial bacteria. So if we're talking at the so I'm willing to agree that all modern conscious causes were caused by either a conscious cause, a non-conscious cause that had a conscious cause, or a non-conscious cause. I'm happy to agree to that trichotomy.
Those are the only options, though.
Right. Yeah. But you haven't demonstrated now.
What's more reasonable? Is it
all
more
three
reasonable to believe?
It seems that all three happen.
Yeah, but again, two of those agree with my argument, and one of those you have to demonstrate.
Well, no, the point is that you have to rule it out. It's your argument. Burden of proof is on you.
Well, I have ruled it out because we don't experience that.
Do you think that that's sufficient to get to? Do you think that our experiences are sufficient to provide explanatory power for bacteria requiring a conscious cause to exist? Because that's what you're claiming. You're saying, well, our experiences are enough to deduce what caused bacteria to exist in the first place.
Not necessarily. I'm saying that it's
no. I mean that's what follows, right? That's what follows from the claim that we're saying. Well, premise one is true because it agrees with our experiences, but one of the implications of premise one is that bacteria are caused by a conscious being, and I don't think that our experiences can speak on that.
Well, so what we can do with our experience is we can do this like in a science lab. Like, for example, even with just consciousness itself, right? With the chemical reactions in our brain, etc., we can actually study this stuff, and they can.
Yeah, we can study consciousness. Yeah, and it seems like it's like a result of the brain, right?
Well, no.
Well, yeah.
I don't believe.
I mean, like the conscious experience is altered by, can be altered by external effects on the brain, right?
Yeah. So you're going to be in the same problem what I'm presenting is because, like, for example, with the chemical reaction, right? There's no, science can't explain how that can give rise to subjective experience, self-awareness, etc.
I mean, maybe that's the case. I don't think that you can explain it either. I don't think that it's called the hard problem for a reason, and theology doesn't solve it.
No, yeah, we actually can.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the solution? How does
it comes from consciousness?
yeah, but so where did consciousness come from?
God.
Okay, so and where did God's consciousness come from?
Well, I don't know. That statement doesn't make sense to me because God is necessary being.
Okay, so you have no explanation. It's just an ad hoc. It's just like, consciousness it just comes from this God thing, and we can't explain where the God thing comes from. Explain to me why it's necessary that God is conscious.
Because he's a necessary being.
Explain to me why it's necessary that God is conscious.
Why God is that's how we define God.
Okay, so you're just so. Explain to me why it's necessary that explain to me why it's necessary that a God being. Sorry, explain to me why it's necessary that a being that has consciousness can be necessary.
What do you mean by?
Because I could imagine a God that's not conscious, right?
You could, but that wouldn't be what classic theism defines.
Right.
God.
So you're just. I mean. So
again, with my
you're
argument,
just asserting that it's necessary. You're asserting that all of its properties are necessary, but with no basis. It seems like
with my argument, right? Talking about consciousness coming from consciousness, this would lead to an infinite regress. An infinite regress is impossible. We have to have.
How do you demonstrate that?
That it's impossible?
Yeah.
because the existence of things wouldn't have no explanatory power.
An infinite regress of everything would have an explanation.
Not with dependent things.
Sure.
Dependent
Why
things
not?
need something else for their existence.
And they could just depend on other dependent things.
Exactly, but then that would lead to an infinite regress of dependent things.
Yeah, what's the problem with an infinite regress?
Because if a dependent thing needs something else to bring it into existence.
Oh wait,
and
hold on.
there's
Are
an
we
infinite
talking
number
about
of them.
bringing things into existence, or are we talking about explanations?
It's both. Without the
Okay,
thing
well,
that brings
because
it
those are
into existence,
different.
It would have no explanation for why it exists.
So you're saying an infinite regress is impossible because something then wouldn't have an explanation for why it exists?
Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
why does that make it impossible?
Logically, it wouldn't exist.
Oh, how does that logically follow?
Because it's a chain of dependent things that need
Yeah.
other things to bring them into existence. How does something that doesn't have
Everything
a
was brought in
starting
by the thing prior to it. There you go.
Yeah, okay, so let's like this, for example, a chain of dominoes, right?
Yep.
If you flick over a chain of dominoes, it leads to, a chain of each domino falling.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's say there's an infinite number of dominoes, but you
Yep.
somehow see that the dominoes fail. Would it make sense to say that the dominoes just have an infinite chain, or would it make more sense to say that they probably have
there's no issue with that. I mean, there's no logical issue with that anyway. Now, you might not believe it, but there's no logical issue there.
How is there no logical issue?
Well, can you present the logical issue? Can you present the contradiction?
The fact that things exist.
What's the contradiction? What's the P and not P?
If you need something else to exist, and everything in the chain needs something else to exist,
Yep.
then there would be no chain at all. If there's no stopping point.
Why not? What's the P and not P?
Okay, I can't really explain this without giving analogies. So
Well,
like, let's say
no,
we have
actually, wait, it sounds like what you're saying is that there's actually no logical reason that makes an infinite regress impossible. That you're just relying on intuition pumping rather than actually giving a deductive argument that proves a contradiction.
I don't know how to break it down without analogies. I haven't studied it in that much depth. But
Okay, well, I'm not interested in analogies. I'm interested in a deductive argument if you're going to make the claim that something is illogical. Now, here's an interesting thought for you. So, would you say that, have you ever experienced a material thing coming from a non-material thing?
No.
Okay, so premise one, all material objects come from material objects. Premise two, humans are material objects. Conclusion, humans come from material objects. Seems like God doesn't exist then.
How?
Because God's not material.
Okay.
Welcome to atheism, I guess.
No, you could still create something that isn't material.
No, all material objects come from material objects.
Yeah, we believe that God created man from dust, which is a material object.
Oh, wait a minute. So there's just so what created the dust? Another material object, right?
You said, but that wasn't in your premise. You talked about humans.
Premise one is all material objects come from material objects.
Okay.
And you accepted that.
And then what's your second premise?
Humans are material objects.
Therefore, humans came from a material object?
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree with that.
Okay, and then where did the object come from? Where did the object that humans came from come from?
But that's not your question. Your conclusion was about humans.
Okay, let's do conclusion two. Humans, so conclusion one is humans come from material objects. Let's say dust. Premise three, dust is a material object. Therefore, conclusion two, dust comes from material objects. Okay, where did the dust come from?
God.
Oh, is God a material object?
No, but he can create material objects.
Oh, no, but premise one is all material objects come from material objects. Dust is a material object, therefore it follows that conclusion three, dust must, I guess we already had it, conclusion two. Dust comes from material objects, not non-material objects, right? That's what follows from premise one. So where'd the dust come from?
Wait, so do you believe in the immaterial world, or no? Are you just playing?
No, I don't think that immaterial things exist.
Okay. So you're just critiquing my worldview, I guess?
No, I'm making an argument from my worldview.
But you just said you don't believe in the immaterial.
I don't believe in the immaterial. I think that material things exist. Absolutely, material things exist. Dust is a material thing, and it exists.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Why are you talking about immaterial things then?
So where does dust come from?
I believe it's created by God. I think everything's created by God.
Okay, so then you reject premise one, all material objects come from material objects?
All material objects come from material objects. I mean, it depends on what you mean by comes from. Like a thought.
So
starting point.
Why don't we say, as in, that is how the material object arose through other material objects.
I don't fully understand the premise, to be honest.
Yeah, like humans are made of humans, like the stuff that came from humans came from other material stuff.
Not in totality. I believe there's
okay. We can change premise one if you want. So then it's more in line with your premise. We can say all material objects have material causes. Do you accept that?
Not in totality.
Okay. Can you give me a counterexample?
The mind.
Oh, how do you know that that doesn't have a material cause?
That the mind doesn't have a material cause?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no evidence that immaterial.
Also, I'm sorry. Do you think that the mind is a material object?
No.
Okay, so then it doesn't apply to premise one. So the mind is not a counterexample to premise one. The premise one is all material objects have material causes. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I don't fully understand it, to be honest.
All material objects have material causes. You didn't have any trouble understanding this when you said all conscious beings have conscious causes. I just swapped out conscious beings with material objects and conscious causes with material causes.
So you're saying that all material objects require a material cause?
Have material causes, yeah.
All material objects. I mean, with my worldview, that just doesn't work.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Well, because obviously we believe that God created.
But all of your experience, do you have any experience of material objects having non-material causes?
Yeah.
Oh, which of your experiences is that?
My mind?
Your mind isn't a material object.
Yeah, I don't understand the first premise, to be honest. I can't.
All material objects, so you know what a material object is, right?
Yeah, something physical.
Yeah, like a water bottle or your liver, right? All material objects have material causes. Now, you didn't have any trouble understanding what causes meant when you used that word in your premise. I'm using it in the exact same sense.
All material causes have material. I mean, all material objects have material causes.
Mm-hmm.
And human beings are material, therefore we have a material cause.
Right. And then we can ask the same question.
How does that mean God doesn't exist?
Well, okay, what is the human material cause?
Dust. Matter.
Okay. Is dust a material object?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the dust's material cause?
The power of God, I guess.
Is God's power material?
I don't know what that even means, to be honest. When you start talking about God's power, I don't know what.
Yeah, so material typically means is made of matter.
Is power
is God's
the manifestation of power? Yes, I wouldn't say that the power itself is.
Okay, because the question was, what is dust's material cause? What is the material cause of dust?
God's power.
And so then you are claiming that God's power is material. It is made of matter.
It could be. I don't know.
You just said that it doesn't make any sense to talk about a power being made of something.
No, I said I don't know what it means.
Okay, so you are now asserting that God's power is made of matter. Okay, that's a material object then. What is the material cause of God's material power?
Yeah, so what you're doing is leading into an infinite regress again, which I reject.
Okay, then you have to reject premise one. And on what grounds do you reject premise one when given the evidence that you have for it?
Because there has to be a stopping point. It will lead to an infinite regress.
Okay, why don't we just change it to all dependent? We can do exactly what you did. All dependent material objects have material causes.
Okay, I don't believe that God's power is a dependent object.
Oh, okay. So God's power is a. So you don't think that God's power is a dependent object? It's not dependent on God?
No, it's interdependent. It can't exist without him.
Okay, so it's dependent. Interdependent is a type of dependency. If it can't if A cannot exist without B, then A is dependent on B.
Is B also dependent on A?
Not necessarily. It can be.
Well, that's interdependency.
Yeah, but so as part of being interdependent is dependency, right? If A is interdependent with B, then A depends on B and B depends on A, which means that the power of God, if it's interdependent with God himself, the power of God is dependent
on God.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now you have God's power, which is a material object in your worldview. Crazy, but okay. God's power is a material object and it's dependent, therefore it has a material cause. What is the material cause of God's power?
I've already answered that question.
No, you haven't. I haven't even asked that question.
There is no, because there is no cause.
Okay, then you're rejecting premise 1. On what grounds?
Because his power is not dependent. I said
it is.
And then you said depending on what?
Wait, no, I'm sorry. Wait, you said it's independent now? So God's power could exist if God didn't exist?
Interdependent.
Interdependence is a type of dependence
on the being itself, not something outside of the being.
That's fine. It's still dependent. It's still a type of it's still a type. If it's still a type of dependence, then we could say that it is a dependent object and it's a material object, meaning it's a dependent material object.
Where are you getting it from? That's a type of dependence.
Interdependence means that A depends on B and B depends on A. That's what interdependence means.
Mutual reliance.
Yeah. What's another word for reliance? Dependence.
When you say cause, there's something outside of itself. There's nothing outside of
Then you have to reject premise 1. On what grounds?
On the grounds of it not being an infinite regress.
On the grounds that it destroys your worldview. Well, it's not an infinite regress.
No,
premise 1 is all dependent material objects have material causes. There's no infinite regress there.
Exactly. We don't believe God is a dependent being in any kind of way. So that's your refutation right there.
Sorry, which part of premise 1 is that rejecting?
Because God is not a dependent being in any way.
Where is God showing up in premise 1?
Because you're going to lead to God. That's what you're doing.
Well, that's the only place that we end up going if you think God is material, which is a crazy view, by the way.
I didn't say God was material.
You said God's power is material.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did. Want me to replay the tape?
You can. I literally said I don't know what it means for God's power to be material.
Do you think that the mind is a material object? Material objects having non-material? Hold on. Same question. Is dust a material object?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the dust's material cause?
The power of God, I guess.
Is God's power... Did you hear that? It was really quiet, but...
You can't keep playing it?
No, that was the important part. Material cause. I asked, what is dust's material cause?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the dust's material cause? I say, what is the dust's material cause? What do you say?
The power of God, I guess.
You say the power of God, I guess.
Can you keep playing it?
Sure. Is God's power material?
I don't know what that even means, to be honest.
You said, I don't know what that even means, to be honest.
Yes, because I was talking about...
Okay, so is it true or false that God's power is material?
Again, I don't know what that means. Because when you say God's power, there's two aspects of what we're talking about. There's either the manifestation of it, which is the creation itself, or it's the power itself. I don't know which
the manifestation of it, if you're just referring to the creation itself, then that can't be the cause, right? Because that's the thing that is being caused. In your worldview, anyway. I mean, look, if you agree that all material objects have material causes, and dust is a material object, then dust must have a material cause. And if you're asserting that that material cause is God's power, then that means that you're asserting that God's power is material, whatever that means. And typically, material means made of matter.
You're talking about God's power. I don't know what that means, to be honest.
I know, because the answer is incoherent, right?
How?
Because you're saying that God's power, which is an abstract object, is material. It's actually not even an object, it's a property, right? and you're saying that an abstract property is material. I mean, I guess it's not incoherent. It's just false.
What makes it false?
It's abstract. It's not material. That's a dichotomy.
Are you saying abstract means it only exists in the mind?
No.
Just immaterial.
It's a type of immaterial thing, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's abstract in the same sense that like the number 5 is abstract.
Okay. Yeah, when it comes to God's power, I don't know.
Right. So it seems like you're kind of stuck. On the one hand, you have to say that God's power is material. On the other hand, you have to then come to the conclusion that God is material, really, because God's power is dependent on God. It's interdependent in particular. And if God is the only cause of God's power, and God's power is a material thing, then it has material cause, and that means that God is material.
Not necessarily. It could just mean that God created matter.
Well, no. I mean, then you could say that, but then you'd have to reject premise 1, which all of the evidence says otherwise.
Do you think that your thoughts produce things?
Yeah, but I would say that my thoughts are material, but that's just a difference in worldview between you and I.
Wait, you think your thoughts are material?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I don't think that non-material things exist.
Yeah, but that doesn't just give you a basis to just then make the leap.
Sure, it does. I have a whole lot of reasons to think that everything is material, and if my thoughts are a thing, then they would be material.
Okay, can you put your thoughts under a lab test?
I mean, yeah, we can kind of do that actually. You can you can actually like image what people are thinking about by putting them in a scanner.
No, you can't, bro.
You absolutely can. I mean, it's not super precise, but yeah, you can.
No, so you're talking about like the fMRI thing?
Yeah.
No, so they're not like viewing your thoughts in the way you're making it seem. There's a
no, I mean they can read your thoughts, right?
No, they can't. So like for example,
they can tell what you're thinking about. What are you talking about? Of course they can. I mean, it's not super accurate, but like yeah, it's a thing.
Why can they tell that? Why can they tell that?
By looking at your brain.
No,
because the way that you think about things manifests in different ways.
Okay, so let's say for example they hook my brain up and they to the scan, right, or the whatever, it says that I'm thinking about apples. What if I say that I'm thinking about me and Beyonce dancing in catfish?
You could say that, but you'd probably be lying.
How would they know?
Well, I mean, look, when we do science, especially on human brains that requires asking people things, like at the end of the day, like we can't know if people aren't lying, but like if you're being honest with yourself and like you could go do the test yourself if you want to, you would know whether you're lying.
But that's the point, is that they wouldn't know because they can't read my thoughts. That's the point.
So well, no, the point is they can. You're just lying about what your thoughts actually were, right?
But they wouldn't be able to know that, though.
In principle, they could know that. For one, like we can actually, like we can. There are also neurological ways to tell if people are lying, like or physiological ways to tell if people are lying, right?
Yeah. How would they know that I'm lying, though?
Do a lie detector on you.
So could the lie detector be wrong?
Yeah, could you be a brain in a vat? Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so the lie detector.
But if you're just willing to accept that like all of our empirical science, it could be wrong. Like, okay.
No, but the supposed empirical science is based on what people say they're thinking. They couldn't refute me if I say I'm thinking about me and Beyonce dancing under the sun.
No, they would. I mean, with sufficient confidence, like, you know, we're probably not there yet, because this kind of tech is in its infancy, of course. But with sufficient advancements in this kind of tech, which is, you know, not so unreasonable to suspect will happen, they could just say, yeah, we have a high degree in confidence that you are lying.
Yeah, but they would just be asserting that. They couldn't.
And you would just be asserting that you're not.
No, I'm not asserting it. I'm thinking it. They wouldn't be able to refute me.
They wouldn't be able to. So,
as a matter of fact,
in the example, are you saying that you actually are thinking of Beyonce and they just read you wrong?
So now I am.
Okay, you're now thinking of Beyonce. Sure.
Let's say I'm thinking about me and Beyonce dancing. How would they know what I'm thinking about? What would they say?
They would. I mean, I don't know what the scans. I don't know if the scans are sensitive to that. I don't, because like they're pretty pretty limited right now.
So they
They're pretty limited right now, but like they can tell like if you're thinking of a color or thinking of certain numbers, for example. That's like a thing that's doable. But so the point is
they have the basics. They have the basics.
Yeah. It's like technology in its infancy.
And the basics is even dependent on things that people have told them, which could be false.
Yeah, and you could be a brain in a vat, right?
Sure, definitely could be.
Yep. Okay. I know you could be. All right, y'all. Sorry, we were getting into solipsism there, and it really wasn't going very far. Anyway, we have one super chat, and then we'll bring up another guest. From Larry Beck, we have $10. Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why the guest was so quiet. Guest's logic is flawed. Proper logic is P1, roses are red, P2, violets are blue, P3, sugar is sweet, conclusion, God is true. That's lovely. Thank you for the $10, Larry. All right, let's bring on another guest. Okay, let us bring on Sir Figs-a-lot. Oh, I should bring on a guest from the TikTok audio queue as well at some point. All right, this person's not coming on. Let's bring on a guest from the TikTok audio queue. Demonly, can you hear me? Demonly?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Your audio sounds good. So, do you believe in God? Oh, there's a little bit of an echo.
Very interesting question there. Oh, I do apologize. One second. I had your stream up on my phone. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's great. Nice audio too.
All right. Awesome. So I joined in with both the queues. So thank you so much, Dr. Blitz, for having me. It means a lot. So I do believe in God, but not in the sense that a lot of people believe in God.
So just to clarify, do you believe that there is some sort of like immaterial mind that is responsible for creating all of physical reality or something like that?
Yes, I do. I definitely do.
As long as we have some basis that we agree on what God means, then sure. All right. So what would you say is the most compelling argument that you could give me for that position?
It's going to be an interesting one. And because I have studied consciousness a lot. And it goes down quite a bit here, but sleep is the number one.
Okay, what's the argument?
Say again?
What's the argument? Sorry, your connection's kind of breaking up.
Okay, so I believe in an energetic God. Basically, everything that we see as a material universe is actually formed cohesively due to us all being energy and us all being a part of the same energy. Einstein successfully said the energy can't be created or destroyed.
That's not Einstein.
And then Isaac Newton also. That is Einstein.
No, it's not.
Energy can't be created or destroyed. That's Einstein.
No, that long predates Einstein. That was like from the 1700s.
I'm gonna read his words.
Okay.
For you.
Like that's the first law of thermodynamics, which was formulated in like the 1700s or the 1800s, which was before Einstein was born. It's neither here nor there. Oh, where'd he go? He disconnected. We'll give him a sec. In fact, we can actually pull up where the first, yeah, he's back. Conservation of energy. Let's pull up because I actually was making a video about this too. So the history of energy conservation goes, yeah, it's like arguably goes back to maybe Leibniz. All right, Demonly, you're back. Newton talks about it a little bit. Yeah, I can hear it. I guess it was Emilie de Châtelet who first proposed and tested the conservation of total energy, which would have been about 150 years before Einstein lived.
Don't disagree with that at all. Einstein did state it though, and he actually accredited a lot of his work towards Isaac Newton and a variety of other scientists. I don't know all of those off the top of my head. You're probably way more intelligent than I am in that regard. But this is where my worldview, I guess, begins, is at this fundamental basis of what energy actually is and exactly where it comes from and why it's showing itself as a material view or a non-material view within our perspective, or from our evolutionary trait with our eyes. So basically, my idea here is this, for my worldview, is that everything around us, whether or not we want to believe it or not, is made up of energy. We can test this by the fact that atoms have to be held together by energy. We can test this by seeing that everything around us is made up of atoms. We can see that with our evolutionary treated eyes, that everything quite literally is at a fundamental basis energy. And
Sorry, can you
do see
elaborate
within our
on
walls.
what you mean by atoms are made up of energy?
So how do you take an atom and hold it together with protons and neutrons?
So there's protons, neutrons, and electrons. There are forces that hold the protons and neutrons together in the nucleus, and then
What are those
there's a
forces?
force it's the strong nuclear force. And then there's another force that holds the electrons in roughly an orbit around the nucleus. But the protons,
course.
neutrons, and electrons, in what sense are those made of energy?
So what we see further down that if we continue going down, that we have quarks inside of
Well, but what about
inside
electrons?
of protons. Electrons, we don't exactly know what electrons are. We actually have noticed that all electrons give off the same energy.
What do you mean
Same
give off
signature,
energy?
same pattern, everything.
What do you mean give
Say
off
again?
energy?
So when I say that, so when we see and we read something, where we're looking through an electron microscope or anything, we're taking that, we're looking at it at exactly how it's supposed to be, what it's giving off to us. Our evolutionary eyes have evolved in a certain way to be able to depict things inside of reality in a materialistic view. We don't know exactly what they look like, but we know exactly what the frequency is down there.
What's the frequency of an electron?
We don't know that specifically, but we can see that for our math, it looks just about the same as every other electron.
Well, I mean, the de Broglie, what is it? It's a French name. I think it's de Broglie is how you pronounce it. The de Broglie relation says otherwise, that the frequency, wavelength, etc. of electrons actually changes depending on your reference frame and depending on what the electron is doing.
That's more in quantum, isn't it?
Yep.
Let me look down at that. I've actually not read over the de Broglie relation, so I'm actually curious about that. But I will I'll pick that back up here in.
But my point is that,
just
like, I don't think it makes sense
refreshing
to
my
say
mind.
that anything is made of energy. I think it makes sense to say that things have energy in the same way that things have charge, in the same way that things have momentum, in the same way that macroscopic things have color, collections of things have temperature. But we would never say that something is made out of temperature. We would never say that something is made out of charge. We would never say that something is made out of momentum in the same way we would never say that something is made out of energy.
So this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting for me. So because I've had to infer a variety of different things and down this path, and why I say sleep is that particular one. Einstein and a variety of other scientists have come to the conclusion, and picking back off their work, obviously, not my own work, where the closer that you approach the speed of light, which would be in a materialistic view like us, that you would start to break down, obviously, and you wouldn't experience time or anything else in the same particular way.
What do you mean start to break down?
Going the speed of light.
There's no issue. Einstein's relativity doesn't say anything about starting to break down as you approach the speed of light. That's just not found in relativity at all.
A mass greater than like me. You can't accelerate me to the speed of light, can you?
You can't. Something with mass can never reach the speed of light, but that doesn't mean that you'll break down. You'll just get arbitrary. You'll just get closer and closer.
Right.
I mean, that would be like the laws of physics stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, why I say that we're all energy is because the fact that when we go to sleep, what we do and what normally, whether or not you're having an waking sleep or if there's something else affecting it, if you have a perfect sleep cycle, generally that sleep cycle is going to be near instant. Energy is always going to be traveling at the speed of light.
Sorry,
whether or not
what is instant?
That's where we're at first.
What is instant?
Energy, speed of light. So
no, but
a proton traveling from the sun.
What's actually happening that's instant? What's the claim that you're making?
So this is what I'm trying to explain here. So a photon coming from the sun does not experience any time between coming from the sun towards hitting the earth.
It doesn't experience any proper time. It does have something called affine time, which is a different thing, but
completely
sure.
But in that sense, right there. So we know that a photon can be converted to energy properly. So we know that we have this obviously through solar panels, through a variety of other technologies that are out there. So when we fall asleep, why is it that we experience time in our unconscious state? We're still there. We're still experiencing. We're still doing things. We can choose a different course within our dreams. We know that for a fact. Everybody can agree to that.
Right, but what
So
does
why
this
are
have
we
to?
traveling
So what's
instantly
instant?
from point zero?
How are we traveling
Huh?
instantly? You never leave your bed when you're in your
So,
when you're dreaming.
so where are your consciousness at?
Your consciousness is in your brain.
Would you say that a radio box has the music inside of it as well, or would you say
It
that it's coming
receives
from an antenna
so a
to a
radio
radio wave?
receives signals from
Right,
whatever is transmitting it at the speed of light.
right. So what is happening to our consciousness whenever we go to sleep? We become unconscious, right?
Right, and then we construct images based off of the day's experiences and other memories that we have.
Okay. So
And those
why
originate in
is
the
the sleep
brain.
cycle near instant?
I don't know what you mean it's instant. Like
So
nothing's
how long
traveling.
does it feel for you when you fall asleep? How long does it take for you from your perspective in a relativistic view? How long does it take for you
Well, I mean,
to
I
sleep?
close my eyes, and then either my next conscious experience is either in a dream or it's being awake.
So again, instant, right? In a perfect
Yeah,
sleep
but nothing's
cycle.
traveling, right? Nothing's
But
going
again,
anywhere.
that's where I'm trying to put this here. So you don't consider a wavelength just coming directly from a radio tower, coming directly out of the radio whenever you turn it on and off, right?
No, it's already there.
It's so the music is already
The
there
radio
in the
waves
radio
are already
box.
everywhere, and then you turn on the
You're
radio and it
right.
picks up the waves that are already there, that are at the location of the
You're
radio
right.
wave.
So
The radio.
our brains are
hmm
receivers, all right?
Well, hold
So
on.
we
Now
receive our
that's a whole
conscious
big
signal.
claim.
That's where this is at. This is where it evolves to. Why is it that our consciousness is always there?
But actually,
So
hold on.
why are we not seeing it?
Let's back up just a minute. Suppose for a moment that our brain
Uh-huh.
is a consciousness receiver, right? Still, nothing would be
Sure.
traveling faster than the speed of light. You could just say that it's similar
Correct.
to a radio in that when you fall asleep, it picks up the signals that are already there.
I wouldn't disagree with you there at all. That's where this is going. So how would those signals get to us?
Well, I don't
If
think that
what
they
are they?
exist.
You don't. So you
But
don't think they exist.
I don't think that our
So
brain
this
is like a
where
receiver for
where
anything. But my point is that even if they did exist, you wouldn't need anything to be happening faster than the speed of light.
No, I don't think that I ever made the claim for faster than speed light.
Or I mean, you kept saying the word instant.
Instant, yes. So instantaneous means not relative to time. So we take
Well,
time out of the
it means two
construct.
things happen
And we
simultaneously,
don't
right?
say again.
It means two things happen simultaneously, right? The
No,
cause
no,
and the
it does
effect
not.
are not
No,
separated
an
temporally.
action in my worldview always is preceding an action or not preceding an action or comes after an action or that doesn't come after an. You know what I mean?
I don't really, but I don't know how relevant it is. But anyway, so go ahead.
Oh yeah, thank you. And I'm not trying to step over you. I really do respect you. I respect everything that I watch your videos all the time. So thank you
Well,
again.
thank you.
So basically, in my worldview, we have actions that correlate after an action. So an action causes another action, causes another action. Obviously, we have that cause and action there. We can see that throughout all of our current reality. We can see we can understand and see how light affects everything and whether or not that things can or cannot be created and or destroyed. So basically we have the law of conservation of matter. We have Einstein's theory of relativity, which I actually believe Einstein did not actually determine and depict energy as in what a lot of people think that it is. I believe that it's not a material thing within the universe or a non-material thing. I think it's a dimensional state.
So
Basically
in
energy
relativity and more generally in modern physics in general, energy is not a thing at all. It's a property of a thing. It's a numerical property of some system. In the same way that charge is a numerical property of a system, momentum is a numerical property of a system.
like length and width, right?
Not even like that. It's closer to like speed or like height.
Closer to speed.
And by height, I
So
mean like position.
We're just to make sure I understand. So we're thinking that like energy is more like of a descriptor of the property of the thing rather than it being a coherent dimension of the thing.
Yep, that is the modern scientific view. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the modern science. Okay, with my view, it lives alongside things like length, width. It lives alongside structure. It lives alongside the temporal flow that we consider time, but time is an action. So actions always are moving forward. They'll always be moving forward. There's a possibility that lives alongside this as well. These would be dimensional states that I view them, and then energy would be that sixth one.
I don't know what you mean by
But
dimensional states.
So this is where a lot of people. So basically, you have with defining what we are, what everything is. You have to look at what is it. So we have to describe it initially. So we see with our evolutionary eyes, since we can't trust our evolutionary eyes, they don't depict and see everything that is there. We have to discard them as a thing to just as imaginary. So our eyes see what it wants to see because it's translated from an ocular organ into our brain. We don't know exactly what's there, but we have this idea of what's there. We can kind of see. We make conscious effort to being able to see what is there, and we don't pick everything. We know that by X-ray, gamma rays, and a variety of different other energetic scopes.
Sorry,
so we
I
can't
still
see,
need to know what a dimensional state is.
That's what I'm getting to. So we have to describe what we experience as without the eyes. So everything that we see, everything that we know, takes up a space that has length width within a point within this state that then has an energetic property to it, which would be energy within an action. A particular action, because everything is an action. Everything down below, all the way
Demonly,
to
can you
top,
land the
everything
plane
has
and
an action.
explain what a dimensional state is?
So again, so you have a point within reality, okay, that occupies a space within that reality.
Sure.
This is a dimensional state. Then that state is
you
going
say
to be
that
within an
you say
action
that
of
that's a
probability.
dimensional state. What is a dimensional state? What do you mean by that phrase?
This is where I don't think that I can explain it well enough. I am autistic, so it is a little harder for me to explain these types of things. But it's the existence itself, because you can't not exist, so you always are going to exist. There's no state of not existing.
So a dimensional state is
And
just existence?
That would be the existence, yes.
Okay, but then energy isn't that, because energy is not a thing that exists, it's a property of things that exist.
So yes, so it'd be alongside of it. So you have so you have all of these dimensions, and they equal out to what we have today. So you have a point within reality, existence. You have then that space that it occupies. You have then its energy that it has. And then you have the action of what it is doing in that particular state, and you have the probability of it within a temporal flow.
So maybe we should just change directions. What does any of this have to do with God existing?
Because God is all of us, and as religion has stated numerous times, and throughout all of religion, God is within. We are all part of the everlasting
Wait a
God
minute.
that exists out there.
So
all of us as energy.
I'm confused. So
when we
God
die,
is all of us? Is that is of like
all of us.
equality? Like
Absolutely.
that, like those, like we are identical to God?
So this is how I see it. So basically, when you die or I die, our energy is going to go back into the ground. It's going to go and get consumed by the planet. It's going to go, and then whatever happens with our planet, it's going to move onward. Our energy is going to exist forever and always. So that existence of forever and always is just going to change its experience within its scope. So that scope's going to change always. That's the action within it.
Right.
So
but we agreed at the beginning that you believe in a God that created physical reality. It's a non-material mind that created physical reality.
So, one moment. I apologize. I have someone coming to the door.
That's fine.
I apologize. I'm back.
You're fine.
So you can continue. I don't.
So
I don't
we
remember
agreed
what
that
we
God
thought.
is a material mind, or a non-material mind, sorry, that is responsible for creating
Yes.
physical reality.
I wouldn't say a mind.
Oh,
That would be a lot.
but then we don't
we
disagree.
observe our. Huh?
By God, I mean a non-material mind, something that
Yeah. So,
has a will,
yeah. So
has
God is a
agency.
non-material mind.
But you just said that you wouldn't say mind.
Not a mind. Not a mind.
So it's not a mind. So it doesn't have agency. It doesn't have a will. It doesn't have.
It
like
does
those
have
things?
agency, and it does have
Then
does have
how is it?
agency. It
How
doesn't
is it
have
not a mind?
it's not a mind in the sense that it is not at all at once determining and depicting the direction of what something does. So a mind generally has that ability. So, for example, we see throughout all of the animal kingdom that animals choose what they're going to do. They choose whether they're going to sleep. They choose whether or not they're going to go out and hunt. They choose that. That's an actual choice, whether or not that's based off instinct or not instinct. So they have minds within our, I guess, our materialistic viewpoint right now. But again, I live in that non-materialistic view, the energetic view.
Okay, I still don't know what your view is. Do you think that when I say a mind, I just mean something that has agency, something that has a will, maybe it has desires, maybe it has preferences? Do you think that that's the thing?
I don't think God has an inherent will. I don't think he has desires, and I don't think that he has agency. But I do think that he exists as a coherent energy that we are all a part of.
Then we're just not talking about the same thing. Like I'm talking about like a non-material mind, and by mind I mean something with agency, something with a will, perhaps some additional features. We're just not talking about the same thing. If you want to believe that there is like some, all-encompassing universal energy that obeys laws of physics, and then like we are all like one with that, that's like one thing, and you can believe that, but that's not what I'm talking about.
I definitely understand that. That makes sense. You're more so looking for more of the inherent. It has a cohesive design to it created everything. I like to look at it more of a energy pressing against a veil type of thing. God is that energy, and it presses against the veil that which creates what we see as a materialistic view. But I definitely understand why you would want someone on the other scope. So I will absolutely open the spot up for anybody that wants to join it. And I have appreciated my time on here today.
Well, thanks for being here, Demon Lee. Have a good one, okay?
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, I kicked him. Sorry. Anyway. Do you feel bad kicking him? I mean, like, I understand that it can be hard to express your thoughts. And I understand that I also can push back pretty hard. So don't take any of it personally. If you do like what I do, then, just know that if you want to hop in, you're not going to get special treatment, right? By the way, before we continue, just want to say a few words and we'll bring up our next guest. First, if you're not already following, whether you're on TikTok or subscribing on YouTube, make sure to do that because you're already watching here. You may as well, right? Second thing, there's a Discord server. You can get to it via the description in the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube, or you can get to it via the link tree in the bio on TikTok. You'll have to copy and paste the link into a browser. It's kind of annoying, but those are cool ways to get announcements about when I'm going to be live, new videos that I post, and things like that. Third thing, if you want to support the live, and this is in part of my income nowadays, if you want to support the live, the best ways are going to be either through Cash App or through YouTube Super Chats, because those are great ways to do it. However, if you do send a YouTube Super Chat, a little message will appear somewhere up here and, you'll get notifications and stuff. Anyway, so those are the three things that I have to say. Oh, also, fourth thing, if you're watching on YouTube, on TikTok, like the live. If we get to 100K likes, I'll put my hair down because some people seem to like that. All right. Anyway, so let me just make sure that everything is set up. Yeah, okay, we're good there. Let's bring on another guest. Let's bring on Goated Edits. Goated, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and which one?
The Christian God.
Okay, great.
But
What would you? What would you say is the most compelling argument you have for the Christian God being real?
For the
always like can
Sorry,
you hear me?
you're cutting in and out. One more time?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was activating my microphone.
Okay. So you believe in the Christian God. What's the most compelling argument you have for me?
What do you think of the fine-tuning argument that the constants of the universe are such that it is more likely that a conscious mind created it?
It seems like it doesn't really actually explain why the constants are the way they are. Or rather, the existence of God does not explain why the constants are the way they are, if God is all-powerful.
Why exactly?
Yeah, so there are roughly a few reasons. First, it's not clear at all why God would pick these constants when he could have made creatures or life or souls or whatever in any kind of universe. Namely, being all-powerful, you would expect that he could have just made electrons have conscious experience, and he wouldn't have needed all this complicated structure in order to give rise to life, right? Secondly, supposing for a moment that he did need to give rise to this kind of complicated life in order to have souls for whatever reason, the question then is why did he pick these constants when the constants could have been any other number that are close to this number? Namely, why did he choose the fine structure constant to be 1 divided by 137 and change, rather than 1 divided by 138 or 1 divided by 136? Because both of those are compatible with life as well, but God's existence doesn't explain why it's 1 divided by 137. Finally, there's a better explanation for these constants. If it were the case that these constants were necessary, then the constants must have exactly the value that they have, rather than just being in some possible life-permitting range. So it seems like on the face of it, the evidence says that we should instead hold the view that the constants are necessarily the way they are.
Cool. For the other last one, I will have to investigate whether they can be necessary or not. For the other one, well, the electron life, I will not know if like God can create life based of only electrons.
Well, so why would he want to create humans in the first place? Like, what's the goal of creating this kind of life?
From what I understand, the purpose of creation is just the glory of God.
Right. So why couldn't he get the glory of God from just creating electrons?
From just creating electrons? Because if these electrons are not conscious,
no, he can make them conscious. Why can't he make them conscious?
Maybe because an electron is not complex enough to produce life based of it.
Are you telling me that God doesn't have the power to make electrons conscious?
Not that I know. I will have to actually investigate whether
it seems like it then seems like the God is limited.
Maybe, or maybe it's just because it is contradictory to say that an electron can have actual conscious experience. But I have to investigate this issue, at least regarding fine-tuning.
That's fair.
Actually, before we move to another thing, I actually am a bit startled for but it does not explain why it is exactly this. Well, the purpose of the fine-tuning argument is not to explain why it is exactly like this, but why it is life permitting.
I'm aware. No, I'm aware. My point is that, look, if say we have 3 different hypotheses. We have kind of a roll of the dice, random chance. We have God, and then we have necessity. Now, you might say that a roll of the dice is less likely than God, because if God exists, then at least the range of the possible numbers is smaller. But compared to the necessity hypothesis, that the constant values are necessary, then the range that's allowed even by God's possible range, if God exists, is infinitely larger, because if it's necessary, you're pinned down at exactly these values of the constants, whereas God still has an infinite number of possibilities to choose from. It's just a smaller range.
Maybe. So we actually will have to analyze whether it is like ontological necessity or physical necessity. And to that I explain. Because even if
do you mean logical necessity? Because ontological necessity is
more or less that. The thing is that if it's just that this universe it is by its physics, by whatever nature it has, it necessarily has to produce this. Just has by the nature of the mass of the Earth, it necessarily bends space and time around it. So if that's the type of it, that if that's the kind of necessity it has, we could still question why it has that type of necessity and not other, and then say, well, it makes more sense to that it will have that type of physical necessity because God wanted it rather than by
I
chance.
mean metaphysical necessity, that it couldn't have been any other way.
Well, okay, if that were the case, that would be interesting. So we will actually have to analyze that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to read a bit more on the literature on this issue. Okay. So then
by the way, there's a third option, or fourth option, I suppose, which is just a multiverse. And in a multiverse, now there's no issue. Now we would expect to be in a universe that has life-permitting constants.
That will also not work. Or maybe an infinite universe will still be controlled by the constant, so that will not work. A multiverse world.
In that case, this kind of depends. But yeah, if you have a multiverse where in each different universe the constants are different, then yeah, you have just no issue with fine-tuning.
Yeah, okay. Then my next issue will be, I have seen you comment regarding the incoherence of theism. Not simply that it's not real, but that there is some sort of incoherence to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, why will that be?
Yeah, so at least under standard theism, you have a being that exists outside of time, and yet somehow that being is able to take actions, that being is able to have thoughts, and that seems like given what we know about what actions are, actions being a process that has a before, during, and after, it seems like you can't have that if you have a being that's outside time. I don't know how a being outside of time, that a being that exists timelessly, could ever create anything. That seems incoherent to me.
Well, at least with you say talks, like discursive talks?
Sorry, one more time?
Talks of thinking.
Oh, thoughts.
Sorry,
Yeah. Thoughts,
yeah, talks. Sorry, I have a bit of a bad English spelling. It's not my native language.
You're fine. Are you Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to see if I could guess. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, the traditional answer was simply to deny that God has multiplicity of talks.
Well, but I mean, we can even just talk about actions. God took an action, and it seems like taking action requires time.
God does not start having an action, so God has one eternal action.
Well, I mean, look, so did God ever exist in a state of affairs where the universe did not exist?
That will just be a logical point in our mind. It's not like there was a time before the universe existed.
I'm not talking about time. I'm just talking about like in a non-temporal sense. Did God ever... I mean, so let's say the universe is 13.8 billion years old. Let's say. Is God 13.8 billion years old?
No, he is eternal.
Okay, so God exists in some non-temporal sense, non-temporally prior sense to the universe, right? There was a state of affairs where the universe didn't exist and God did exist, right? And then there was a state of affairs where the universe did exist and God existed.
Yes.
And so that means that that seems to imply that there's some sort of change occurring, and I don't know how you can have a change occurring timelessly.
A sort of... that's actually a good question of how it will work. The thing that I do know is that God has the ability to create the universe simply based of his one eternal act without the need of time.
Well, it can't be an eternal act because then the universe would be eternal, right?
Well, yeah, the act is eternal, but the termination of the act was decreed by God to have a beginning in time.
And I don't know what you mean by the act being eternal. Like eternal means that there's time. Perhaps you mean timeless?
Well, yeah, technically eternity here just means like the complete and absolute fullness of life in God, which just means that...
I don't know what that means.
Okay, basically, let's take it to mean timeless.
Okay, so if we say that the act is timeless, I take that to be a contradiction. I don't think that acts can be timeless. I think that acts are kind of definitionally time-full things.
Well, what do you take an act to be?
I take an act to be, perhaps we can take maybe an intentional change of states.
An intentional change of states?
Yeah, we could say that. Whether it's internal or external, it's some sort of, I mean, we typically take actions to be intentional, and then we typically take them to be things that cause change.
Yeah, you posed good questions. I have to actually start in my investigation of, but what is an act? What does act mean in God? Blah blah blah.
Okay.
So for now, I will just say that. Well, for the at least for your argument of how can God have thoughts, well, at least I answered that one. Do you have any other incoherence, or is just that?
Well, so I'm not so sure I'm not so sure I agree on the, well, like maybe you just don't think that God has thoughts in any sense of the word, but then I just don't know what it means for God to be a mind. But yeah, I mean, like the major source of incoherency with just standard theism for me is what it even means for God to be timeless and then also take actions. There are other reasons why I think that God is not real. However, I wouldn't say that they would be incoherencies. I would say that they're more like evidential issues.
Oh, okay. What will be those evidential issues?
I mean, like there's the evidential problem of evil. There's the evidential problem of consciousness. Those are kind of the two big ones. The evidential problem of consciousness, I don't know if that's the official name, but essentially that it seems like we have lots and lots of evidence that minds are things that are attached to bodies. Like we have instinctual responses to like protect our brains. When we fall, we like protect our head instead of protecting our foot. We know that like when your brain gets damaged, your conscious experience changes. So it seems like we have very, very strong inductive reason to think that, yeah, the brain is a thing that is what causes the consciousness rather than just kind of like being like a storehouse for it. And so if that's the case, if we do have this strong evidence that the brain is what causes consciousness, then we have strong evidence that consciousness can't exist outside of a brain, or at least some kind of brain. And so that's like, that is one issue with a being that is an immaterial mind. And then there's the evidential problem of evil, namely, you would expect, like on the evidence or on the facts, you would expect that a theistic God that doesn't want evil, we would expect less evil than we see.
Okay. Let me try to tackle at least those two. So with the brain, well, actually this is relatively easy to answer, at least for me, because you contrasted the brain causes the consciousness with the consciousness is like here and takes on the body. You contrasted those two.
Yeah, or whatever other theory of consciousness you might have.
Well, the thing is that we'd say that the at least the human person, it's and any other animal or even plants, it's constituted by a union of body and soul, a hylomorphism, and so the consciousness is truly related to the brain. So that all of the observations we have is completely consistent with the hylomorphism.
Well, look, but so if the two options are the brain is the cause of the thing, and it's just a coincidence that the brain is closely related, it's just a coincidence that the brain is like somehow protected despite the thing not being caused by the brain. It just seems like it seems like the simpler explanation is just that the brain is the cause of the thing.
Well, we will not say that like it's a coincidence. When the soul does have a relation to the bodily organs.
The soul has a relation to the bodily organs?
Yeah, because that's
How
what
does that
it means.
work? And now it seems like you have the interaction problem.
Well, basically, for example, we will deny that like a bacteria can have a rational soul.
Sure.
You need a brain for that.
So you need a brain
like
to have a rational soul. How much of a brain do you need?
How much of a brain?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like asking how much of a brain you need to have consciousness. I don't know.
So my view is that consciousness is sort of a spectrum. And so, as you take away someone's brain, bit by bit, their conscious experience will become more and more kind of diffuse, less and less definitive, until eventually there's no recognizable consciousness at all. But if having a soul, which is presumably, that's kind of the thing under discussion here, if having a soul is it's either you either have it or you don't, then the question is how much of the brain can you remove before you can't have a soul anymore?
Until basically it will be until you die, then the soul leaves the body.
So like Do you remember, there was a famous case of this. There was a kid, I hesitate to even call them a kid, because they were basically born with a brainstem and a brainstem only. They had no cerebrum, no cerebellum, nothing. So the parts that we think of as a brain, they just weren't there. Would that organism have a soul?
I will actually have to investigate that because I am not entirely sure what you're describing.
Yeah, it's called. I can tell you the case and then you can write it down and look into it. Boy born without brain. It's called anencephaly, and the case was. Let me see if I can find the specific case that I was thinking of. It was a really famous case, and like the parents kept the organism, the infant, alive for a very long time, and it was like really kind of screwed up. Is it like Noah? Was that the okay, so that's not the one that I was thinking of. Yeah, okay, so a boy born without, so I'm seeing this on the Huffington Post. Maybe it's not reliable, but a boy born without a brain has defied all medical odds to survive until the age of 12 before dying peacefully. Yeah, I guess he had both of his cerebral hemispheres were completely absent and replaced with cerebrospinal fluid. His name was Trevor. Yeah, I mean, just look at like boy born without brain and you'll find stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, do they have souls?
I will assume that even with that lack of brain, somehow the little amount of brain that they do have is sufficient to keep the rational soul in it.
But they don't have anything rational going on in there, right?
What do you mean anything rational?
Well, you said a rational soul. Like such an organism is not capable of thought.
You mean these cases of the kid in particular?
Yeah.
So it is incapable of thought. Interesting, because
well, yeah, I mean, like you need your cerebrum to think, right?
I guess so. So, it could be that he has a rational soul, but it just is not like active. It cannot act without the full body. But I will investigate this and maybe.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm planning to, when I have this type of discussion, I usually like when start writing a document and then my arguments and your arguments and analyze, and then later in another day I can come again and discuss it when I am more informed.
Okay. So is it all right if I move on to the next guest then?
Yes, just the problem of evil, and then you can move on. So.
Well, the problem of evil is a long conversation. Why not we talk about the problem of evil next time you come on?
Yeah, I guess that I will investigate the problem of evil.
Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, that will be fair. When is your next?
I do these at least once or twice a week, and it'll be at around the same time during the weekdays. I might do this topic again on like Friday. So unless something changes, that's probably when I'll do it next.
Well, okay then. Have a nice day for now.
All right. Thanks for being here, bud. He was delightful. He was a super good faith. I appreciate that guy a lot. So we got a quick super chat from somebody who I'm going to bring up. So we have from NR2190 saying, "Hey, Dr. Blitz, how are you? I'm on waiting room as Nico. I was just wondering if there's a chance you might talk today." We will. I'm going to bring you up next. Nico, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Hey there. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Glad to hear it. First, I have to ask, do you believe in God?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Are you 18 years or older?
I am. I'm 28.
Okay. You look young, so you have a good face. And which God do you believe in?
So, I've read about many gods. The problem is, I'm not sure if you want to have this kind of conversation. My point is that I believe most gods, as they're written in like holy books, are things that are basically descriptions of something that is kind of self-evidently existing, and not so much something that you can even debate if it exists or not. You know what I mean?
You're saying that they exist self-evidently?
Yeah, they're kind of words that are used to describe something that you can observe pretty much.
So, like, Zeus exists?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
But
we can focus on one particular one for the purpose of this
conversation. I'm just like Zeus lives on top of Mount Olympus, at least if you read the stories. We can go on top of Mount Olympus, and there isn't Zeus there.
Yes.
So how does Zeus exist?
I don't know about Zeus in particular, but
okay.
What I would say is that they're used as like avatars of some sort of way of being or something. Like, you know, I could talk about like, I think there's in Greek mythology, I think there's Ares. I think it's the god of war or something.
Yeah,
if I'm not
you're
mistaken.
Right. Yep, no, that's right.
So like that would be like representing of the will of the soldiers that go to war or something.
Right.
That,
but,
I don't know. I'm
so
yeah. Go ahead.
But look, so the claim is that God exists, not that there are like archetypes or like, you know, kind of concepts that pervade the human experience. Like the question is so maybe I'll ask it a different way. If all humans disappeared tomorrow, would God or gods still exist?
I don't know. That's like a philosophical question. You can ask that about like any character, like Harry Potter. I guess I would still don't know how to answer.
Well, I don't think Harry Potter exists either, right?
Right.
I think Harry Potter is a fictional character. In the same way, I think that Zeus is a fictional character, that Jesus, at least Jesus, the divine being, is a fictional character, etc.
Great. Yeah, we might agree on this, and it might seem super trivial at first, but I still believe it's something worth talking about because this conversation, like it can be very productive to talk about this, because I think there's a way of reading these holy texts that is much more productive than reading it as if God is something like supernatural, or in a way that it leads to superstition and fundamentalism.
So, Nico, I actually absolutely agree with you on that. I think that there is a sense in which we can say that God like exists culturally, and like you know, we can think of God as like a way of viewing the human experience, etc., etc. However, and I think that that's fine. If you want to believe in God in that sense, like you believe in like this unified cultural experience or whatever, fine. But the kind of belief that I think is very silly is the kind of belief that think that there is a supernatural being that created the universe, and that's the kind of people I'm interested in talking to. So, Nico, I am going to let you go because you are not the target audience here. Is that fair?
It is fair, but can I say one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's like an overlap that is very subtle between the superstitious type of believer and myself, but it's very hard to talk about it without digging a little bit deeper on a particular God, for example. So there's like a hidden overlap between these two worldviews that they may end up sounding the same when you put it on a sentence, but it's kind of the difference is hidden. So there's still value.
I can believe that. I can absolutely believe that. That there's certainly overlap. In that, like, the way that you live your life might very well be the same, right?
No, it's not really that, but it would take some time to get.
All right, but that isn't the topic of conversation, so I do have to let you go. But thank you so much for being here, Nico.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right, thank you for coming. Bye.
And by the way, I've had a lot of well, Nico was from Uruguay. And his English was super, super good. I'm just blown away by that. All right, let's bring up another guest. Julian, not the Julian. Julian, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Okay, and just to be clear, which one is it?
Christian God.
Okay. What would you say is the most compelling argument you could give me for the Christian God being real?
I think there's a lot of compelling arguments. The fine-tuning one is probably the best one out there.
Okay.
Things like immaterial things like truth and logic, these things existing.
So where do you want to start?
I think we can start with the immaterial. I heard you say something earlier. You said you don't believe in anything immaterial.
Yeah, I don't think that immaterial things have like ontological status. Yeah.
You believe they exist?
I think that like concepts exist in minds in the same like. I don't know how to phrase this the right way. I haven't come up with the best way to phrase it. But like, I don't think that Microsoft Word is immaterial. But it's like a particular arrangement of material stuff, right? And so in the same way, I view like thoughts and concepts kind of in the same way.
So something like truth, does truth exist?
Truth is a concept that points to propositional, truth values. It's a particular type of truth value that a proposition can have, which is just another kind of concept.
Okay, so you do believe in immaterial because concepts are immaterial.
Well, but the way I view concepts is the same way I view Microsoft Word, and I don't think that anyone would say that Microsoft Word is immaterial.
Well, Microsoft Word is like a physical app, but what created it, I guess you could say, the code of itself.
Yeah, so that's, so Microsoft Word is like the instantiation of a certain arrangement of matter. And similarly, I would say that concepts are the same way.
Concepts are you said matter?
They're an instantiation of a particular arrangement of matter.
So something like truth, how could that be a substantiation of matter?
Yeah, so truth is truth is just a concept, which is a kind of thought. And if a thought is just an instantiation of a particular arrangement of matter, then there you go.
What do you mean by that? Particular substantiation of matter. What do you mean?
A particular arrangement of matter.
Arrangement of matter.
Yeah. So if you arrange matter in one way, then that is equivalent to thinking of one thing. And if you arrange matter in a different way, that's equivalent to thinking of a different thing.
Okay, so you would say that concepts come from a mind. That's where the matter.
Yeah, I would say so. So I like to use a computer analogy. It's not a perfect analogy, but I like to use a computer analogy in that like the brain is your motherboard, the mind is your operating system, and then the thoughts are whatever is running currently, like Microsoft Word or what have you. Okay. And in that way, then nothing is really immaterial there. But there are different like layers of viewing things, layers of kind of abstracting away from the individual neurons in the same way that like Microsoft Word abstracts away from like the individual transistors being in a certain arrangement, right?
Right. So if we have these concepts that exist within our universe, like we can agree, like truth.
Well, I think truth exists in minds, right?
Right. But so you're saying that if there were no human minds, truth wouldn't exist?
If there's no alien minds as well, yeah.
But we're talking about humans. Like, let's say all humans disappeared.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that aliens could also have a conception of truth as well, right? But yeah, if we get rid of all human minds, then yeah, I would say that truth doesn't exist. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say the same thing about logic?
Sure.
So if no humans existed tomorrow, could a dinosaur and an apple be the same thing?
Well, so are you asking about a proposition? Is a dinosaur an apple? Or are you asking about the proposition a dinosaur is an apple? Is that true or false? Or are you asking about the state of affairs of like the universe?
I'm saying the physical things.
Yeah, so dinosaurs are dinosaurs and apples are apples, and like, if someone was there to measure them, then you could like go and see that they're like different shapes.
But,
for example.
My question was, since you said that logic comes from minds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If human minds were gone tomorrow, dinosaurs and apples suddenly couldn't be the same thing, right? Now that's the law. That logic comes from the law of identity.
Well, no. So the law of identity applies to propositions, right? Or rather, it applies to objects that live in propositions. The law of identity is a proposition itself. I don't think that has bearing on like the way the world is.
I think it does.
Okay, but why should I think it does?
Because it's observable and it's logic.
It's
logical.
observable by minds.
Right. Just because we can't observe it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if I wasn't here tomorrow, if I suddenly didn't wake up tomorrow, I have no reason to believe the laws of logic wouldn't exist.
Well, there'd be the laws of logic would exist in other people's minds.
Right, but let's just apply that to the broader scale. If, like you said,
Yeah, I mean, what do you think the laws of logic are?
They're an immaterial concept that stems from the mind of God.
So wait a minute. So they do exist in a mind?
Yes, we just said that logic, these things come from a mind, but they can't be.
Okay. So if God ceased to exist, could an apple be a dinosaur?
Well, God wouldn't cease to exist.
Yeah, and it's a hypothetical. If God did cease to exist, could an apple be a dinosaur?
Well, if God ceased to exist, nothing would be anything. There would be no apples or dinosaurs. So
I don't see how that follows.
Well, because God is eternal, so God will never cease to exist. But let's say God did.
Can you? I mean, you should just engage with the hypothetical, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
could God kill himself?
No.
God doesn't have the power to end himself.
Well, he's eternal, so he can't begin or end.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't have that power.
Well, so when we say he's all powerful, we don't say that he can do things illogical.
What's illogical about God ending his own life or ending his own existence?
But what's illogical, if he's eternal, then it means he can't have a beginning or an ending. So
God is defined as, so God is necessarily eternal?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that I would have to see the argument for that, but that's a deep rabbit hole. We don't have to go down there. Okay. Well, so could God change the laws of logic?
Could God change the laws of logic? I don't know. I don't think he could. Just because logic stems from his nature, his eternal nature, and he is a logical being. Therefore, it's necessary.
Logic stems from his eternal nature. So I thought logic was just something that existed in his mind.
So God is a mind, right? And
yep.
God's mind is logical. So therefore, logic flows from the mind of God. So if God's mind.
We're kind of doing like a, what is it? Like does logic come from God, or does God obey logic? Like that kind of thing.
Well, logic comes from God.
Okay, but then it seems like, I mean, God could change his thoughts on a lot of things, right? Or are you saying are you saying that God's mind is necessarily logical? Euthyphro, thank you. That was the. So yes, God's mind is necessarily logical.
Yes.
Okay, so which logic is it?
All laws of logic come from.
Well, no, I mean, so is the law of the excluded middle? Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
Okay, but then why can we do sensible mathematics without it? What about fuzzy logics? Are fuzzy logics true? Is S5 true? Is S4 true?
Well, I don't understand all of these things you're saying. So
well, there's a whole bunch of different logical axioms. So which ones are the ones that God instantiates?
Like I said, all the laws of logic, or all logical things.
You mean the laws of logic from like 2,000 years ago? Because there's a lot more than that now.
I don't know, whatever you want to say. Like all logical laws stem from the mind.
So which ones?
All of them.
Well, you can't have all of them because they're mutually contradictory ones.
Give me an example.
Yeah, so you could have one axiomatic system of the law of logic where there are 3 truth values for propositions. This would be like a paraconsistent logic, I think is what they're called. And then there would be another axiomatic system of logic where there are only 2 truth values for propositions. This would be one that includes the law of the excluded middle. You can't have both being true because they're mutually contradictory.
Yeah, so you're saying the law of identity and the law of non-contradiction contradict each other?
No, I didn't say that.
Right, so you can.
I was talking about 2 different axiomatic systems, 2 different logical axiomatic systems that are mutually contradictory.
Right, but I just gave you 2 that aren't contradictory. So
okay, so are you saying that the only ones that are instantiated are the law of identity and the law of non-contradiction?
No, I said that these laws flow from God's nature, and it's very.
But I'm asking which laws.
I already gave you my answer. I said all of these laws of logic.
Which ones? You keep saying all. Which ones? There's plenty. There's a lot. Which ones specifically?
I can't name all 200 or however many laws of logic there are in our universe.
So is the law of the excluded middle a law? Is that one that's instantiated in our universe?
Yeah.
Okay, so then why are we able to do sensible mathematics without it?
What do you mean by sensible mathematics?
Like, there are logicians who work with the law of the excluded middle being false.
You said they work with the
Yeah, as in that's the logical system that they work with. That they work within. Sorry, it's not it's not called paraconsistent logic. It's called three-valued logic, or trivalent logic.
So you're saying because there's people who do studies that say the law of excluded middle is false, therefore it's false.
Well, it at least seems the law of the excluded middle seems just as true as it seems false. Insofar as you can choose whichever axiomatic system and you can do mathematics in a sensible way.
Okay, what does that have to do with the actual law?
Yeah, well, the point is how do you know which one is true?
Well, I could come up here and say, hey, I know people who do mathematics and say 2 + 2 = 4, and they actually believe it and they actually can show it. But then I can say somebody else says 2 + 2 = 5, right? But what does that have to do with the actual law?
How do you know which law is true?
Well, truth is, I think, like, stems from logic and things of that nature, mathematical truths. Things are just true, and
things are just true. So you just know that law of the excluded middle is the true one.
Truth comes from laws, right? So a law makes something.
No,
true.
truth doesn't come from laws. That's not how propositional logic works.
What is truth?
Propositions have truth values. That's just a feature of being a proposition. Now, you can use the various laws to derive other truth values from, some earlier truth values, but truth doesn't come from laws. No.
So truth doesn't come from laws.
No, that's not at all.
Does 2 + 2 = 4?
Given certain axioms, sure.
Yeah, isn't that a law of mathematics?
Given certain axioms, sure.
So the truth comes from the law of mathematics, right?
No.
You just said it was a law, and you just said it was true.
The truth doesn't come from the law.
Where does it come from?
It comes from the axioms and the inference rules that you allow.
Oh my gosh, bro! 2 + 2 = 4 is a law of mathematics. Therefore,
okay. So then what? Wait a minute. If 2 + 2 = 4 is a law of mathematics, then why can I say that does 8 + 6 = 16? Sorry, does 10 + 6 = 16? I can do math.
Yes.
10 + 6 = 16. Okay, well, but then why is it that when 6 hours passed after 10 a.m. it's 4 p.m.?
Say that again.
Why is it that that 6 hours after 10 o'clock it's 4 o'clock? Why isn't it 16 o'clock?
Are you talking about the time system that we count with?
Yes.
Like Eastern Standard, Pacific.
No. So if 10 + 6 is 16, why isn't 6 hours after 10 o'clock 4 o'clock? Why isn't it 16 o'clock?
Well, it is 16 o'clock in military time.
Okay, so why isn't 10 hours after? Why isn't, let's say, 30 hours after 2 o'clock? Why isn't that 32 o'clock? Why is it instead 8 o'clock?
That's not how we count time.
Right, because the way that we describe systems mathematically depends on the axioms.
Yeah, but that's
what we're describing right now is called modular arithmetic. If we do 2 + 2 modulo 3, then your answer is 1. If you do 2 + 2 over an infinite field rather than a finite field, you get 4.
Oh, yeah,
just depends on what field you're adding over.
Yeah, you can say that with different languages too. Like, if you want, I'm not talking about the language of mathematics. I'm talking about the actual concept of mathematics. So, for example, if we have, I was ask you a question. How many birth mothers do you have?
How many birth mothers do I have?
Yeah.
1.
Right. That's universally true, regardless of whatever language you say it in. It's 1. You could say 1, you could say uno, you could say dos.
Sorry, what I was talking about had nothing to do with the language. It was a statement about which axioms you're using.
Okay, well, what I'm talking about here is the system of mathematics, right?
The system of mathematics depends on the axioms that you choose.
It does not depend on
it. It absolutely does. this sounds like somebody who's never like looked into the foundations of mathematics before.
So you're saying that you can have one mom and then use a different system of axioms, and now you can have two. Is that your claim?
The number one only even makes sense in certain systems of axioms.
I'm asking you a question. If you have one birth mother and then use a different system of axioms, can you suddenly have three birth mothers?
Sure, I guess modulo 2.
But do you actually have three birth mothers, or is that just
Modulo 2? Yeah, if you're working over the field of characteristic 2, yes.
So
you have 3, you have 5, you have 7, you have all of those birth mothers. You have all of those numbers of birth mothers.
No, Blitz, you're telling me you have 3 physical birth mothers.
Yeah, over the field of characteristic 2. Yeah.
Yeah, can you show me all 3 pictures of your birth mothers?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not going to show you a picture of my birth mothers.
Because you don't have 3. So
well, no, I'm just not going to show you a picture of like my parents. Like, it's weird.
Because you don't have 3.
No,
you have 1.
Well, but here's the thing: 3 and 1 are the same thing over a field of characteristic 2.
Yeah, I mean that was. I can't believe you just said that 3 and 1 are the same thing.
They are in a field of over a field characteristic 2 or modulo 2. They are the same thing. They're the same number.
Great. So now numbers don't have actual properties. So I can say I have 3.
Well, no, you just have to specify where you're working. You have to specify your axioms, or you can specify like what field you're working over and things like this.
So let's say, because these things don't actually have value, let's say I put something on my resume that says that I worked at my job for 3 years, even though I've only been there for one, right? Is that suddenly true?
Well, I mean, if you say, yeah, I worked at my mathematician job for 3 modulo 2 years, then yeah, it would be true. But most people are not particularly mathematically inclined, and so most people kind of just intuitively use the mathematics that they learned when they were in grade school, which is kind of the standard mathematics using Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory that works over or that uses the field of characteristic 0, etc. That's just how most people communicate, but that doesn't have anything to do with what mathematics is.
Okay. Well, I feel like we're just never going to agree on this.
Well, you're right, we won't, because having this conversation about the foundations of mathematics and logic requires actually knowing something about the foundations of mathematics and logic, and I'm not sure if you have those.
I think I know plenty. I know that one.
It doesn't seem like you do. Had you ever even heard of the other systems of logic? Had you ever even heard of paraconsistent logics or 3-valued logics or anything like that?
Well, I can't really speak with somebody who says they have 3 birth mothers, so I don't know where we can even go from
there. Well, it sounds like you're running.
I'm not running. I'm still here. I can talk about something else.
Okay, yeah. If you want to talk about something else, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's just hard because. Okay. Anyways, let's talk about fine tuning.
Sure.
Right. So let's talk about how how precise the things are. That if things are like 1% different,
which things?
Well, I'm just being general right now, so we can kind of go from there.
I don't think that there's anything that if it was 1% different that the universe wouldn't be life-sustaining.
You know what the fine-tuning argument is?
I'm very familiar with the fine-tuning argument, yeah.
So you understand that the argument is essentially that the constants, right, or the fundamental constants, if you would call it, are so incredibly narrow, right, or so incredibly, if you want to call it precise, that it allows life to exist.
Right. I'm just arguing. I don't think that like 1% is an incorrect estimation.
Well, okay, not 1%. If we could say like, I don't know, 1.
So the point is, the proper fine-tuning argument, and I'll just help you out here. The proper fine-tuning argument is something like, given that the constants could range over all possible positive real numbers, the fact that there's only life permitting, the fact that they fall in the region that's life permitting, and the life permitting range is perhaps only a few orders of magnitude across, that is very unlikely. Because the claim being that if they were picked randomly, the up quark mass could have been 1 trillion times heavier, but if it were even 100 times heavier, then life couldn't exist. That's roughly the argument. It's never 1%. There's not a single thing that if it was changed by 1%, it would be devastating for the universe. So that's the typical fine-tuning argument, the one that I just offered. Now, I have a question for you, which is, why did God need these particular constants in order to achieve his ends?
He didn't. Well, you said, why did he need? What do you mean by
So why did he choose these constants?
For example, like, give me an example of constant you're talking about.
Why did he choose, I don't know, why did he choose the fine structure constant to be 1 divided by 137 and change?
Well, that's because he chose that.
Why? So the fine-tuning argument only works if you say that you would expect certain constants to be more likely given a god, right? It's the only way the fine-tuning argument works, which means that you need to be able to expect certain constants given a god existing.
Okay, so the constant you just described, right? Say that again.
The fine structure constant. It's about 1 divided by 137.
Got you. If that constant was off by anything else, like if it was off by a certain number, would our universe be inhabitable right now, or habitable?
It could be 100 times bigger, and our universe would still be okay.
100 times
you could still
bigger.
have life. Yeah.
Would life still be the same exact way that it is right now?
No, of course it would be different. If the universe were different, then the universe would be different. But there would still there's reason to think that you'd still have life permitting, like a viable universe if it was 100 times bigger.
So that's the answer to your question. Obviously, God wanted the world to be a certain particular way, so that's why he chose that certain.
Okay, so why did he want the world to be this way?
Well, they're just like asking me, why does God do certain? I don't know why God.
So if you don't have an explanation as to why God chose these constants rather than some other constants, it seems like neither of us have an explanation as to why the constants are the way they are.
And does that say God doesn't exist just because we can't explain?
Well, no, it means that the fine-tuning argument falls apart.
No, it doesn't actually. Just because I can't give you
like if you can't give me an explanation as to why they are the way they are, and I can't give you an explanation, then it seems like we're both in the same boat.
No, so what I can't give you is an explanation as to why God did it. But what I can give you an explanation as to why it is that way, because I just said, if it was, let's say it was 100 off, life wouldn't exist in the same way that it exists now. So obviously God had a plan for life to exist in a certain kind of way. So I can't tell you why God did it, but what I can tell you, what I can tell you,
then you're giving me no explanation at all.
No,
you're saying God did it, but I don't know why.
No.
Okay, well, then why would I expect? Why would I? If you don't know why would you expect him to do it a certain way?
Okay, when you do something, right? Let's say you smack me in my face. Not saying you would ever do that, right?
Yep.
And I can't explain to you why you did it. Does that mean that you didn't do it or you shouldn't have done it?
Well, if I did it, I did it, right?
Right. So just because I can't explain to somebody why you smacked me, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have smacked me or you didn't smack me. The same way I can't explain
that's
to you
disanalogous, though.
How's that disanalogous? Just because
the whole argument of look, so the way that the fine-tuning argument works, like the formal way that it works, is you say that on the God hypothesis, you expect God to pick certain constants. But if you don't know why God would expect to pick these constants, then you have no expectation that God would pick these constants.
So you're telling me your argument is because we can't understand God's expectations. Therefore,
no. So this is the fine-tuning argument is a probabilistic argument, right? It basically says, given certain facts about God, one would expect the universe to be in a certain way, and then lo and behold, the universe is that way. Therefore, we have evidence that God exists. The trouble is, if you don't know what facts it is about God that leads us to expect the universe is this way, then you can't make that evidential argument.
Okay, well, let me give you some facts about God, right?
Okay.
Or at least my definition of God. So we believe that God created us in his image, right? And we believe that God wanted us to be in relation to him and with each other, right? We believe God wanted us to exist as human beings in a planet that can support our existence. So that's what he wanted.
So he wanted us to be human beings? For what? To what end? Is because God's not a human being, right?
No, he's not.
So it's not like he wanted to create something, like, what is it about us that he wanted?
He wanted us to reflect his image. So
why does he require human beings for that? Why can't he just make electrons do that?
Because clearly electrons don't reflect his image.
Why not? I mean, he could make them, couldn't he?
Electrons don't have minds and they don't interact with each other. They don't.
I'm sorry. Is there some sort of physical requirement to have a mind now?
No, just electrons don't have mind.
If there's no physical requirement to have a mind, God could make anything have a mind.
Okay, but he
So
didn't
he could
do
make
that.
electrons have minds.
But he didn't do that, Blitz.
Right. So the point is that it seems like under your worldview, under the fine-tuning argument still isn't resolved because, or the fine-tuning is still not resolved because he could have just as easily made the universe completely differently and just given the electrons minds.
I mean, that's literally, I don't understand. That's really not a good argument. I don't understand. You're saying because God didn't make us electrons, therefore our universe isn't fine-tuned. That is.
Well, I'm saying that there is no explanation for why the universe is this way rather than any other way.
Well, I gave you an explanation and you won't accept it.
No, the explanation is that God wanted, the explanation you gave us is that God wanted humans. And the question is why does God want humans? And you said, well, you know, he wants us to be able to, what did you say? To be able to like introspect or something?
To love each other, to love him, to worship him.
Yeah. But none of those are requirement. None of those require being human. You could have electrons do all of those things.
But how do you know that, actually?
Oh, well, I mean, presumably God could make it so electrons can love each other, right?
Right. I mean, if he wanted
to.
But
yeah. So then making humans was not a requirement to achieve his ends.
No. So why would you say that it's not a requirement if that's not the case? Because we don't see electrons loving each other, right?
Yeah, that's just because that's not how the universe is as it is. But but God could have made it that way, could he have not?
Well, he didn't, so that means that there's a reason why he didn't.
Well, that's the problem. See, if you assume God exists, then sure, there might be a reason. But you're trying to make an argument that God exists. And the fact that I can conceive of a way that God could have made the universe in a way that doesn't have life-permitting constants, and yet still achieves his goal of having, like, you know, people who or minds that can love each other and can worship him and so on, then it seems like that God's desire to have, you know, minds that have this love and so on, it seems like that doesn't select for our constants to be what they are.
So in your world where electrons are loving each other and worshiping God and doing that, demonstrate to me how that works.
Well, God could make it happen, could he not?
No, you said you can conceive of it, so I want you to demonstrate.
Yeah. So I can conceive that God being all power, if God exists, then God is all powerful and God can instill minds in anything because minds do not require a material body. So God could instill minds in the same way that you and I have minds, God could give electrons minds.
Okay, and how would those electrons demonstrate their minds without a material body?
How would they demonstrate their minds? I don't know what you mean by demonstrate minds.
So what I said earlier was they have to love each other, right?
Yeah, so they could love each other by moving around each other and dancing.
They don't have bodies. How are they dancing?
They're electrons. The electrons are dancing. They're like moving around each other in like sophisticated patterns.
But they don't have physical bodies.
They're electrons. They can move around each other.
Blitz, you just said that they don't have physical bodies, so how can they dance?
No, they don't have brains. Electrons are physical things. You know this, right?
No, you said earlier that they don't have bodies.
Well, bodies not in the sense that we have bodies.
Okay, so how are they dancing?
They're moving around each other in complicated patterns.
Okay, so in your universe, electrons circle around each other in complicated patterns, and that's
kind of like bees.
Better universe. That's a better universe than human beings that can actually physically.
Maybe it's even better because it's simpler. It's more elegant.
Okay, well, I don't think this is an argument against God. I think this is just your opinion.
No, it's an argument. It's a defeater for the fine-tuning argument, is what it is.
Well, not really.
It is. It's actually a really highly regarded defeater for the fine-tuning argument, and it's actually widely regarded as a problem for the fine-tuning argument. It's not an invention by me. It's an invention by, is it Graham Oppie? I think it's Graham Oppie.
So let me get this straight. So the defeater of the fine-tuning argument is.
Is this Oppie?
So
I want to say that it's Oppie, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so the defeater of the fine-tuning argument, I quote, is because God didn't create electrons that have minds and can dance and love each other. He chose to create humans.
Oh no, I'm sorry, it's not Oppie. Oppie just kind of made it more famous.
Therefore, we would have no reason to believe that God fine-tuned the universe because he could have just easily created electrons.
Yes. Essentially.
Yeah, I don't see that as a great argument. So
okay. Really I mean, do you have a way that you like a symmetry breaker? Why God would want to make the universe this way rather than some other way that fulfills his desires?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I think God created us to love each other. To
right, but he could have done that for electrons too. So why does
Well,
that select
that's
for these
your
particular
opinion.
constants?
That's your opinion. That's
So
just
it's
your
not.
opinion.
Wait. So does God not have the power to do that?
So, like I said earlier, God has the power to do all things logical.
So then he could have done
if
that.
it was logical. If it was illogical in any sense that electrons could do anything that was according to its purpose, then he didn't do it.
Okay. So where's the illogical nature of electrons being in love? What's illogical about that?
Electrons don't have minds.
God could give them minds, could he not?
Yeah, but he didn't. So
Well,
therefore, it's
right. This is a hypothetical, my guy. Is it possible that God could give
like I said,
minds to electrons?
I'm not going to do this thing where, like I said to you earlier, I said that God doesn't do things that are illogical.
Okay. So
does
he do everything that's logical?
Yes, God is logical.
So he takes every action that's logically possible.
Yes, that's why he didn't create electrons with minds.
Wait a minute. He takes every action that's logically possible? Really? That you do not want to say that. That's a blunder.
Why is that a blunder?
Because they're mutually contradictory yet logically possible things. So for example, God could make the sun not exist, and God could also make the sun exist, and in both cases they're logically possible, but they can't coexist.
Okay, is it logically possible for human beings to exist if the sun doesn't exist?
Sure.
So how would we survive if the sun didn't exist? How would we survive?
You're asking about physical possibility, not logical possibility.
How would we survive if we didn't have
Asking a question isn't demonstrating the logical impossibility of it.
Okay, so you're just demonstrating right now why God created the sun.
No, I mean, like, for example, humans could exist underground using geothermal heat. That's one way that it could happen.
Okay, but that was not according to God's purpose or plan. So
yeah,
but
I'm sorry. You said God does everything that is logically possible. And I just demonstrated that it's logically possible that humans could exist without the sun. And so God should remove the sun because it's logically possible to do so.
Did God do that though?
No, but that means that he didn't do everything that's logically possible.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So let me retract that because that's not what I meant.
Okay,
so
what did you mean?
God doesn't do everything logically possible. What I would say is God has the logic. God can see what's logically possible and what's illogical. He then chooses the best logical pathway to go from there. So even if it was logically possible that we could exist without the sun, God knows that that's not the best way for us to exist. Therefore, he chose the most logical, best route for us to exist.
Okay, so then the question is what's so your claim then, going back to fine tuning, your claim is that it is the best route to produce, loving beings or whatever, in the way that he did.
Right.
Now, on what grounds do you have for thinking that, and again, you can't just say, well, God exists, so of course he's going to choose the best route, because you're trying to make an argument for God's existence. You can't just say, oh, well, God did do this, therefore it must be the best. Because that's the argument you're trying to make. So, what makes this world better achieve, or what makes this world better able to achieve his goal of creating loving beings over, say, the electrons in love world?
What makes this world better? Okay, well, I say what makes this world better than you said the electrons creating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for one, this world that we are in, we have human bodies that we can use to express ourselves in all kinds of ways. So we can express love, we can express artistic expression, we can use our bodies in so many different ways. Versus if we didn't have bodies, we wouldn't be able to express ourselves, express our souls in the same sense that God desired for us to do so. Another way is because we have minds, we can worship.
Well, the electrons would have minds, right?
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. So so let's.
So is it the bodies part? Is it the complicated bodies?
That's one aspect because.
So why wouldn't God make it so that we have even more complicated bodies?
So why wouldn't God give us more complicated bodies?
So that we can better express our love.
Well, that's a question that I don't think really disproves anything, because just because God didn't give us,
it does, because it shows that it's arbitrary.
Okay, just because God didn't give us 4 legs doesn't mean that
we could dance better if we had 4 legs.
Well, that's your opinion. I don't think I could dance that well if I had 4 legs. I think.
Well, no, you could just do more impressive dancing, right?
But does that make it better? Just because I can do so much more?
Well, yeah, you could express yourself more effectively.
Well, I feel like if we had 4 legs, people would be tripping up a lot. So I don't think we would be able to dance better.
Look, lots of animals have 4 legs. They don't trip.
They don't dance that well though.
Well, I don't think other animals dance, even the ones that walk on two legs. So I don't think it's because of the legs that they don't dance.
I think if we put humans and a dog in dance competitions, I feel like the humans would probably do a little better.
I don't think dogs know how to dance. I don't think that they can like conceptualize that.
My point is, right, humans not having 4 legs, you know, I think it's for a reason, right? I don't think it would be
right. But now you're just appealing to mystery. You're just saying, well, there's not actually a reason why the constants are the way they are. It's just there's just a reason. God had a reason, but now you're not actually doing any explanatory power. You're not actually providing an explanatory power for why we would expect God to create the constants this way.
Actually, I feel like I am. I think what you're doing here is when I explain to you, you ask me questions like, okay, why didn't you do this? So
right.
You're not really allowed.
So look, the main problem with fine tuning, which is why I don't think it's a particularly good argument, is that it doesn't actually explain why the constants are the way they are. It's just tacitly assumed that for some reason God wanted to make the constants this way with no explanation.
Well, when you say no explanation, that's just your opinion, because I'm giving you explanations and you're just
okay, so the one explanation that you've given me now is that, well, you know, God needed these constants so that humans could have bodies that express themselves, express the love in like a fulfilling way, right? Is that the where you want to go with this?
Well, that's just, yeah, that's my main.
If that's the case, God could allow expression in a whole host of ways that are inconceivable, that we can't do, and different constants could have allowed. For example, electrons could express themselves in ways that we couldn't. We're limited by, for example, gravity. Electrons need not be limited by gravity. If gravity didn't exist, right, then they could do like somersaults over each other, and they could like do all sorts of crazy things when moving around each other that we can't do.
Okay, well, let me ask you one question. Maybe this is slightly on topic, but it's still on topic.
Sure.
Do you think that freedom has limits or boundaries?
I think that freedom has limit. You have to be a little bit more specific.
Like let's say all humans were 100% free in all aspects. Meaning we could do whatever we want anytime.
Do you mean like legally free? Like there's no like laws and stuff?
There's no boundaries, there's no laws, legally free.
Sure, okay.
So you would agree that freedom has some type of boundary or law to it, right?
Well, I mean, look, so there are like different ways that we can describe this, right? So like, even if there were no laws, like humans can't fly, right? Like we can't like flap our arms and fly because there's physical laws that are like constraining us. And even if there were no physical laws, a square could still never be a circle. Like we could never like make a square with our hands and then at the same time have it be a circle, because like there are like mathematical laws, if you will, based off of, you know, like the way the geometry of our universe is. And so it's a question of like what level of freedom. I mean, yeah, generally I would agree that like even if you take away legal restrictions, then of course there are like physical restrictions, sure.
Right. So my point in saying that is you're saying I forgot exactly what you said. My point in saying that is that you said, well, why didn't God create what did you say, atoms?
Electrons
that have 4 legs that can dance or something like that. Or no, you said why didn't God give us the ability to fly or something like that, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So I say, and this is just in my worldview, where God, being the logical being that he is, saw the most logical, rational, if you want to say, plan or timeline, if you want to say. And he knew that if he gave humans the ability to fly, they would either kill them. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. End themselves, hurt each other, or just maybe it wouldn't be the best route for them. They would have too much freedom in that sense. Where coming back to what I said earlier, they might have too much freedom. And so maybe giving us a boundary of, okay, they only have 2 legs, but this is the right amount of legs in which they can express themselves in a beautiful way, which is not too much that could hurt them. You know, does that make sense?
Sure, I understand that from your worldview, but if this is supposed to be compelling to somebody who doesn't hold your worldview as it stands, well, it just sounds like you're doing special pleading. You're just saying, oh, well, you know, God had to pick it this way because that's just how God had to do it. You're just saying you're making you're giving ad hoc reasoning for why the universe, why God had to make the universe with these specific constants, right?
Okay,
And
so
ad hoc arguments are just very uncompelling.
so my question to you is, what could I say that would satisfy the argument here? Because
The fine-tuning argument?
yeah, definitely there's nothing I can say.
Well, so I mean, I generally I think the fine-tuning argument's not particularly good, so I don't think relying on it is a particularly good way to provide evidence for God's existence. If somehow you could construct a syllogism from some minimal set of God's properties, like you know, if you assume God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving, and exists timelessly or something like this, and then wants to create beings that love him and are capable of love or whatever, if you start from that minimal set of assumptions and then somehow derive, without adding extra stuff, without adding ad hoc stuff, and then somehow derive that the constants must fall within a certain range, that would be pretty compelling. But I don't think that you're going to be able to do that, because I mean, we've been trying for like the last half an hour, and it hasn't been particularly successful.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Maybe I'll try. You said a syllogism that that demonstrates why God fine-tuned the universe in a particular way.
Basically, a syllogism that gets to God. If in order to achieve God's goals, God must have chosen constants that fall within a particular small range. And if your starting place is, you know, standard theism, and then maybe an extra assumption that God wanted to create beings that are capable of loving him.
Okay, so a syllogism is basically like a deductive argument.
Yeah.
Right? A structure.
Or at least some sort of inductive reasoning. That would be fine too. I'm not going to hold you to like the deductive proof thing, as long as you can give some sort of argument that doesn't add ad hoc assumptions every step of the way.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I'm gonna try my best, and then if not, you can just drop me.
Okay.
But so from what I was saying earlier, I believe God is necessary, and I do believe God exists, and I also believe He's rational, and I believe, you know, just rational. He's rational, and it also flows from His nature, which is rational, right? So therefore, you know, a rational, intelligent God, you know, does act with rationality or with purpose. There's nothing random about his actions, you know. So for example, in a universe that shows stuff like stability or order, or I believe it's fine-tuned, but you don't necessarily agree with that, you know, that makes our life possible, then for that I would say it's randomness or random chance doesn't follow from such a, you know, rational structured being. Does that make sense?
Well, wait, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So I thought you were going to give a deductive argument or some sort of maybe inductive argument for fine-tuning. But are you just now making like a teleological argument, like the universe is orderly, therefore it must have an orderer?
Well, I thought that was a deductive argument.
Well,
I guess it was.
I mean, well, no. I mean, like we could investigate the argument if you want. It was like a little loose, but I could follow most of what you were saying, except the last step. I think the last step was a little bit mistaken, but that's fine. But I was just asking what the end result, what you were trying to prove was, because I thought that you were going to try to prove that the universe is that fine-tuning is expected given a God, but it sounded like you were just making an argument that the orderly nature of the universe leads you to expect a God.
Okay, well, look,
which is just a different argument, right?
No, I was trying to say that, yeah, fine-tuning is best explained from you know, purposeful like action of God flowing from his nature, which is rational, right?
Right, but the question is why did God have to choose these constants? That's the thing that you have to show. You have to show that given minimal assumptions about God, that God would want to choose these constants to achieve whatever end that he has.
And by constants, you mean like something you said earlier, like the one,
like the fine structure constant, yeah. These kinds of things. By the way, and because I should probably let you go to bring up another guest, but just as and this is just one debater from one debater to another, the fine-tuning argument can be really compelling. The trouble with it is it relies that it actually relies on knowing the physics, and if you are not familiar with the physics, you will be bent over backwards by people who do. And so this is not like saying that that's what happened here. I'm just saying, like, as a warning, know the physics first before you make the fine-tuning argument. Otherwise, you'll just have a bad time. Like, it's a technical argument that relies on knowing the empirical science. And if you don't know the empirical science and you just say, oh, well, it just has to be like, it just won't be compelling to anybody.
Okay. Well, I hear you, but I feel like my last thing I'll say, and I'll go.
Yeah,
I
sure.
feel like just because I don't know the exact numbers, I think that doesn't really show why God wouldn't choose those numbers. Because I feel like for me, well, not for me, I feel like God didn't just like pick random numbers out of a hat when he created our universe, right? So these numbers that we have, these are constants and they're there for a reason. And so if they were any different, even slightly, even off by 100 or a fraction of a percentage or whatever, we would live in a completely different universe. And we would have completely different circumstances, completely different, or we wouldn't even exist at all. So I think that was my main point.
No, I know, but that's not the strongest version of the fine-tuning argument that if you're going to try to make a fine-tuning argument, you should make the strongest version. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go, but thank you for being here. I do appreciate the good sportsmanship, okay?
All right, thanks.
Take care. All right, let me read some super chats and then I'll bring up another guest. So we have from the Nightman Cometh with $10. Blitz, your lives make a very annoying job somewhat tolerable. Thanks for all you do. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for the $10. And from Fear's interaction with the $10, God, I have created you to reflect my image. Man, behaves pretty much like God. God, no, you're doing it wrong. Now get in the fire. That's funny. That's a good one, actually. Yeah, right. Cool. Thank you guys for the support, by the way. Grimlock also sent $5, and that's why I drank some water in the middle of the live stream. All right, let's bring up another guest. Let's bring up the Layman from the YouTube stream. The Layman, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me pretty good?
Perfect, actually. Do you believe in God?
I do.
And which one, just so we're on the same page?
I'm never quite sure how to answer that question. I think that I pull from a lot of different wisdom traditions, and I think that most religions are fundamentally similar and superficially different.
Okay, but so do you believe that some sort of immaterial mind created like a physical reality separate from itself?
I do believe consciousness is fundamental, but I think that minds are private and secondary and also emergent.
That wasn't my question at all, though.
Would you mind rephrasing it? I don't believe that minds are fundamental. No, I believe that they're derivative.
Do you believe that there is some sort of immaterial mind that created physical reality?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, unless, yeah, I guess that's your question. I guess
that's what I mean by God.
Oh, gotcha. No, I mean consciousness, like pure subjectivity. I don't believe that God has desires, for instance, and I think minds are really correlated with desires. Minds are specifically there for desires to kind of get us the things we want. But if God wants things, then he's not. So I think that would frustrate some of the.
I know you've been waiting for 40 minutes. Sorry to kick you out, but that is the kind of thing that I'm looking to talk about. Steve, how's it going?
Yeah, hey, Dr. Blitz.
How are you?
Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, of course. Do you believe in God?
Yeah, so, yes, I believe in the Supreme Elohim, and I was calling to discuss evidence. RNA has God's mark based on the structural components, cumulative atomic masses of amino acids encoded by their codon's initial 2 nucleotides, thereby formulating the expression 3 squared times 37 plus 4 squared times 37 equals 5 squared times 37. And this number of 37 times its mere number of 73 equals 2,701.
So, Steve, just a really quick question. Just a really quick question. Steve.
Value in Genesis 1:1.
Can you hear me, Steve? Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me what a nucleotide is?
Yeah, I can hear you barely, but I can hear you.
Can you tell me what a nucleotide is?
Yeah, a nucleotide is the basic building blocks of RNA, the molecules that make up life.
Oh, but like, what is it?
Well, there's 4 types of nucleotides. There's adenine, guanine, I think cytosine, and uracil in RNA.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to double check because it sounded like you were reading off of something, and I wasn't sure if you actually knew what those things were.
Yeah, I do read off of pre-made scripts that I myself write.
Okay, great. I just got to double check. Totally reasonable. Right, so it sounded like what you found is you found a 3-4-5 triangle or a 3-4-5 relation in RNA. Is that roughly it?
Yes, there is. So
what does that have to do with God?
Patterns and symmetries.
So what does the 3-4-5? What does the 3-4-5 Pythagorean triple have to do with God?
Right angle triangle ratios 3-4-5. That is correct.
Right, but what does that have to do with God? What does it have to do with God?
Well, what this okay, I think we can agree that there are these patterns and symmetries that we observe in genetic coding, such as the symbol of zero and privileged decimal syntax.
The symbol of zero? I don't know what you mean by the symbol of zero showing up in our
of a product of natural selection.
So Steve, you might have to turn up my volume because it sounds like you can't hear me very well.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'll let you speak. Go ahead.
Is there a delay?
I mean, interrupt.
Is there a delay?
Yeah, no, there's no delay. I'm not sure why you're hearing me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It just sounds like you can't hear me. But right, so you said that the symbol of zero is present in our DNA. Can you elaborate on that?
No, I cannot. The details of this are written in a paper titled "The Wow Signal of the Terrestrial Genetic Code" that are written by two scientists. One is a mathematician.
You there?
And the other is an astrophysicist. And this is published in a paper, Icarus, in the peer-reviewed scientific journal Icarus, published, I think, in about 12 years ago.
Right, just to double check, neither of them are geneticists?
Yeah, these are the people that can would be able to explain this are two scientists, one Vladimir Sherbak and the other Maxim Makakov.
Right, but neither of them are geneticists.
But they have, I'm sure they've taken courses in biology. Physicists can understand biology. You're capable of that, right?
Well, yeah, but I would generally expect a geneticist to write an article about genetics, right? Not an astrophysicist and something else.
And a mathematician.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to write. I wouldn't expect them to write articles about. I wouldn't expect them to write an article about genetics.
It doesn't make them wrong.
No, but it does make me a little bit suspect, right? Like, that's a reasonable suspicion to have if you're making a genetic claim and you're not a geneticist. In the same way that I would be a little bit suspicious of like a biologist making a claim about like the Hubble telescope saying XYZ.
Well, I don't think that proves them wrong.
Well, so
because that's not their particular field
right.
of study. But they have studied biology. I'm sure they have a good understanding.
So elaborate for me. Explain it to me. In what sense is the conception of zero present in the genetic code?
I think that has something to do with in the way that the stop and start codons work. I don't really understand that, but I do understand the pattern of 37 appearing in our genetic code.
Why is 37 important?
Because when you take these atomic masses of the structural components that encode for amino acids, and you take the whole family codons that can be defined by their codon's initial first two nucleotide bases, and you take these atomic masses because these the structure of these amino acids have a main core, a side chain, and a total sum in atomic masses. And when you take when you add up these atomic masses of this particular group of codons, you can formulate an expression of 3 squared times 37 plus 4 squared times 37
I'm just asking,
equals 5 squared times 37.
Steve, you're not answering my question. I'm asking, what does 37, like, why should I care about the number 37? Like, why is that? Okay, let's say the number 30, let's just grant that the number 37 shows up. Why should I care?
Okay, you should care about that, because if you take 37 times its mirrored number of 73, it equals 2,701. And that's the gematria sum in Genesis 1:1.
Okay, but why are you using the base 10 decimal system in order to take a mirror sum when they didn't use base 10 back then, or a mirror product rather?
Because we use base 10 math.
But they didn't. The ancient Hebrews did not.
Who's they?
The ancient Hebrews.
Well, what math? What other math would they have used? We have 10 digits on our fingers.
Probably would have used.
We're going to be biased towards using a base 10 math.
They probably would have used base 60 like the Babylonians did. But actually, the ancient Hebrews didn't have a positional numbering system at all. So taking a mirror sum doesn't even make sense, or a mirror product doesn't even really make sense, because they didn't have a positional numbering system.
Well, we use base 10 math now, so we can see these.
If you used any other number system, the mirror product would have given you a different answer.
Well, this of course won't work using any other system, but using the system we use, it works.
Yeah, but that system didn't exist until, like, I don't know, the 1,500 years ago, maybe, like with the Indian numeral system.
Well, who's to say that the Supreme Elohim didn't use base 10 math, and they knew we would use base 10 math?
Then why did the Babylonians use? Why didn't the Babylonians use that? Why didn't the ancient Hebrews use that? Look, so Steve, I'll cut right to the point. Any type of numerology that you're doing that relies on a choice of base is going to be very, very non-compelling.
Why so? Who's to say that? Who's to say that the intelligent designer of our genetic coding didn't also use a base 10?
So the reason why it's not compelling is because you have to make these sort of ad hoc assumptions. Oh, the universal designer knew that we were going to be using base 10. Oh, the universal designer wanted to take the reverse product for some reason. Like, there's a lot of ad hoc stuff that goes into any sort of numerology or gematria based argument, and that's why they're very, very uncompelling to me.
Well, maybe you're just not as impressed by this as I am. I'm sorry.
I think that you're seeing patterns in places where there aren't any. Or rather, you're finding patterns that are expected to be found, given the sheer number of possible numbers.
No, I didn't find these patterns. I didn't find this pattern, though. It was two scientists 12 years ago that found these patterns. A mathematician.
So they also wrote.
And a physicist.
They wrote the thing about the 3, 4, 5 triangle as well.
That's in the paper, yes.
What was the paper called?
Right angle Pythagorean triangle, or Egyptian triangle, 3 ratios of 3, 4, and 5.
Here it is.
That signal appears that's a message in our genetic code.
So I
don't know
actually
what that's supposed
don't see that anywhere. So I just pulled up the paper. I actually don't see the 3, 4, 5 stuff anywhere in the paper. Oh, actually, I'm looking. Sorry.
It's in there. It's a
let
lengthy
me pull up
paper.
the whole thing.
You got to go past the abstract.
Yep. Well, I was looking at this, not the abstract, but there was there were snippets of the various sections. Let me pull up the whole thing. Okay, yeah, so I have the whole thing. So I'm just looking for the number 37. Okay, so they mentioned the prime 37 exists only in the positional decimal system with 0 concept, or 037 only exists in the positional decimal system with 0 conception. Okay, they say, yeah, they're just doing all sorts of. Hold on, what is the impact factor of this journal? Because this would not be accepted in any astrophysics journal.
Well, it is in Icarus.
No, I mean, but like this is like.
That's astrophysical.
What I mean is that like this kind of work is like really. It looks really bad. Like, I'm just skimming it, but like this, I wouldn't accept this if I was peer reviewing it. for like a quality journal.
Well, Icarus is very.
Well, I don't know.
credible.
I don't know. I have never heard of Icarus. I don't know why. If it is a quality journal, I have no idea why this was accepted. Like it doesn't really look good. But anyway, you said something that the 345 stuff is in here. Like the 3 times. I see 2 times 37. That's a P of 0.35, which is really high. Yeah, I didn't see anything about the 345 appearing anywhere, but I'm almost done with the entire paper.
I think it's a 12-page.
It's 57 paper. It's 57 pages.
90. Oh wow.
And I'm just using Control F. Yeah, so 37 never appears in conjunction with the numbers 3, 4, or 5 anywhere in this paper.
Yeah, it's in there. I've read the paper. It's in there somewhere.
I just checked.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So I mean, you've heard my response. I don't find numerology particularly compelling. I don't really think anybody does. I think that the people who find numerology compelling are the people who already believe in God. I don't know. I just don't think that that's ever been.
But if you're sending a message in genetic code, you're going to use numbers. Of course, there's going to be numerology.
Why would you use numbers? Why wouldn't you just use?
Because mathematics is a universal language.
Well, maybe. Actually, this is an interesting point. So, suppose for a moment that it's okay, or that's the case. Do you think that the human genome evolved?
I think it was influenced. I of course. I mean, the genetic code really hasn't evolved. I don't think a lot. It's not really, that hasn't changed much in billions of years.
You don't think so?
But DNA has evolved, yes.
Why don't you think the genetic code has changed much in the last few billion years?
Well, it may have changed a little, but I don't think the genetic code is that different now. Do you? Than it was.
Well, I mean, you can compare our genetic code to like the genetic. You can compare our genetic code to like the genetic code of like a fungus, and they're very different, right?
That uses the same genetic code, doesn't all like pretty much use the same genetic code?
That's like saying Microsoft is the same, or that's like saying Microsoft Word is the same thing as like my calculator, because they both use 1s and 0s.
Yeah, every computer coding uses binary code, right? Pretty much 0s and 1s.
But my point is that. So my question is do you think that like the features of our genetic code that you're saying are present in humans, are you saying that these are present in all? Actually, yeah. Are you saying that this is present in all life?
I think the genetic code is universal.
Okay, so you think that I don't actually know what your claim is about the 3, 4, 5 triangles and the 37s. I didn't follow most of that, but are you saying that that's present in all life?
These patterns that appear in genetic code are universal to all life.
Yeah, so why would he choose 37 instead of just 2071 like you wanted it to be?
Well, 37. You can get to 2701 when you take 37 times its mere number.
Yeah, but right? why not just have 37 in the first place? Why not have the 2701 in the first place?
I don't know what the significance is of 37. I was hoping maybe you might somebody else.
Well, let's go check. Let's go to a gematria calculator. Let's just look up a number.
I mean,
let's look up the number 37. So the gematria. Oh, okay. So it's not a word in Hebrew. Is it just gimel mem? It might just be gimel mem, which is just not a word. Or maybe maybe it is. Let me check. Yeah, it's so ad hoc. Like reductions, they like flip them around and then add them to themselves. Like it's like you're just doing random like math things. There's nothing like indicative about any of this. Like, doesn't that worry you a little bit?
Well, if there's a signal in the genetic code and it's the number 37 in an Egyptian triangle, I mean, those are artificially artistic contrived signals. Those don't appear in nature. I mean,
The number 37 doesn't appear. The number. It's very the 3, 4, 5 doesn't appear in nature.
The Egyptian triangle doesn't appear. That's an artistic symbol. That's not a natural.
To be clear, I didn't see that anywhere in the paper either. And I still don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if this is true, because I didn't follow what you were saying, because you were kind of just reading fairly quickly and I couldn't follow it. But yeah, so here's an issue. The number 37, the way gematria works is that you take a word and then you convert it to a number. You can't just start with a number and then think it's meaningful.
Well, I think that there's a symmetry there.
Where? 37 is a prime number. There's no symmetry there.
No. When you take 37 times its mirrored number 73,
but that's a base 10 choice. And DNA is base 4. So why don't you do the base? Why don't you do the base 4 mirror multiplication?
Bible verse. I'm sorry. What? I'm having
DNA is base 4, right? Do we agree that DNA is base 4?
Yeah, there's 4 codons are 4 nucleotides, right?
Yeah. So DNA is base 4. So why wouldn't God do the mirror reversal for, base 4? Because that's what he's already using.
Well, because we use base 10. You use base 10 math. I use base 10 math. He's trying to communicate a signal to us.
So if you use base 4, then the number you would get is 814 back in base. I did the conversion, so back to base. Sorry, I guess it's base 3. You're right, not base 4. We can do it. We can do it in base 3. Let's do it in base 3 really quick. Let's do the mirror flip. So in base 3, it's 1101 is 37 in base 3. So then if we do the flip 1011, and we convert that in base 3 to decimal, we get 31. So 31 times 37 is 1,147. Is that number significant? Because that would be the most sensible thing to do. If God's already using a base 3 system, he may as well. No, I'm sorry, it's base 4. You guys are, no, it's definitely base 4. 0, 1, 2, 3 is base 4. Base 2 is 0, 1. So I was right. The comments were wrong. Anyway, the number is 814. And God was already using a base 4 system for DNA, so why not just encode it that way? And moreover, if God actually used base 10 systems, why wouldn't that be in the Bible anywhere?
Well, I don't know why he would use a different system to communicate to us than the ones that we use.
I mean, we also use binary. We could convert it to binary.
I mean, I can't question the math that God himself would use.
Well, but that's the thing. You're trying to use this to prove the existence of God. You can't assume God exists in the first place to use it to try to prove God exists. You're trying to make an evidential argument, and if your evidence is ad hoc, then you're a little bit stuck.
Okay.
But look, Steve, I'm going to let you go because I want to talk to one more person before I end the live, and I only have 15 minutes left. So thank you so much for being here, Steve. I appreciate it. And do make sure to look into gematria and why it's nonsense. Going to read some super chats. So we have from Reborn Yugen, that's a great name, with the roughly $3, if the soul does not exist, nothing has a point. Well, that's a take that you could have, I guess. I don't think that that's true. And then from Super Pizza with the $2, what's the background image? Also W Blitz. The background image is the James Webb Space Telescope. It's not the telescope. It is a deep view photograph or picture taken by the James Webb. All right, let's talk to, I feel like I've spoken with Mikey Aces before, but I just want to double check. No, it's the name is Reborn Yugen. It's not win. I mean, maybe it's a pun, in which case it would be. It'd be like Reborn You Win, which was funny, but that's not how it's written. Mikey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Do you believe in God? Have we spoken before?
Maybe once. I'm not quite. I think so. Maybe once.
Okay. Yeah. So, and did you say that you believe in God?
Yes.
Okay. Which one?
Not from religious text, just a spiritual one.
Is this a being that created the universe?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so why should I think that this thing exists?
So, do you believe in spirits?
No.
No. Okay. So, what about consciousness? Do you think that there's a unmaterialistic quality in consciousness?
No.
Do you believe that it's all based on biology?
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess you don't ascribe that. Do you believe in orbs as being real?
I don't know what you mean by orbs.
So, there's like video of like orbs flying around like in the sky that are like light orbs. And
Yeah,
they have
I suspect that those are not
special.
immaterial, whatever they are.
Right. So, but they don't seem to have a classic biology as we know, right?
Oh, I don't think that they're alive.
So what do you think they are then? They're just a byproduct of...
The atmosphere, yeah. Sure.
Okay. Because I definitely think that they are alive and definitely conscious. Because I've seen them myself on a plane once, and the patterns and the way that they were behaving just made me realize, like, yeah, they are definitely conscious. And recently there was another orb video that went kind of viral where one of the missiles, I think, were shot at it, and it just evaded it and then broke into little pieces, but kept flying. So I think they definitely are around. It's just that we don't have any indication of what they are.
Well, to be
what they
clear, the
want,
thing that got
or,
hit by the Hellfire
yeah.
missile was obviously material because it was solid, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
So
no,
it's
but
not
then it split.
immaterial.
Yeah, it seemed like there was something there.
Yeah, so it's
But we
not
don't- we-
immaterial.
what is
So
it,
whatever
right?
it is, whether it's, like
Yeah.
a drone or whether or not it's whether it's like some alien, whatever, it's still material.
Right. So what I'm saying is that there is something there that is very it's like it's something in there that's controlling it. Like the movements are very I would attune to a consciousness.
Or a remote
my
control.
It could be. So then that means that the consciousness of it is being remotely controlled from somewhere else.
Yeah, by like a person.
That's a
Like it could just be a drone, my guy.
That would be a far stretch in my opinion. Having
And
drone
wait a minute, to be
capabilities
clear,
of that nature.
a drone, which we know exists, is a further stretch than like an alien consciousness.
No, I would say alien consciousnesses are more closer than that being a drone. Yeah, and the reason why is this is where I'm going with this, is why I asked you about spirits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't believe I believe we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Okay.
Right? Because there are different spirit. Yeah.
I don't.
Go ahead. Okay, because there are like panda bears, there are different animals. Like this is just all in the animal kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all spirits as well, right?
Panda
Like
bears
a
are
giraffe
spirits?
they have a spirit. Just like a giraffe or a dolphin or a whale. There's different spirits in the animal kingdoms.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that that's true, but what does this have to do with God?
Yeah, it is. Well, because we are having a human experience. We are the only creatures that are capable of evil, in a sense that we could destroy ourselves. No other animal is capable.
Are you
of
sure?
doing that.
You sure?
Yeah, yeah.
Because like there are definitely, like, you know that like dolphins will like grape babies, and
But
like
they don't have
fish.
well, they don't have capabilities of destroying, if we wanted to, the world.
Okay,
Or
that's
our
just because we're
society.
smarter, not because that's just because we're smarter, not because like we're more spiritual or something.
Well, it is. It's because we have the abilities that they don't, right?
But what does this
And
have to
that
do
just
with
comes.
God?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all spiritual warfare right now.
But what does this have to? Well, suppose for a moment that I believed spirits existed. How does that mean God exists?
Because well, that's it. It's like good and evil. And
How
if
does
you
how
want to
does that mean
say,
God exists?
well, because I believe those two are forces, right? The forces of good and evil.
Okay, but how does that mean God exists, like a being that created the universe?
Because these are forces that created the universe, and the same force that created everything created the two forces that
But why do you think that? Why do you think that there's a God that created the universe?
Why do I think it? Because it is for our ascension.
What?
It is for our
What does that mean?
it is for our ascension. It is that because we are spiritual beings, we have to commune again with knowing that we are all just a consciousness. All
I
just
don't
one,
understand
right?
how like, even if I granted all of this, I don't know how this means that God is real.
Because God created this consciousness,
How do you know?
which is a spirit.
How do you know it was created by God?
What? Just the fact that there are different different abilities of each animal.
What does that have to do with God
It just
existing?
shows that there is a knowledge. There's a purpose. That there is a
How do you
a
get
formula.
to how do you get to that from there being spirits? Different kinds of spirits in different animals. How do you get there?
Well, because we come from different parts of the universe, right?
What does
So
this what does this have to do with a God?
This is what I'm saying. That everything that has been created comes from that one source, right?
Right, but that's the claim. You keep asserting the claim. I want to know why you think that claim is true.
The claim is why I think the claim is true is because in the world we live in, we can see it clearly that there is a force that is good and evil.
I don't think that there's a force of good and evil at all.
Well, then I don't know if but the state of affairs of
like
the
I don't
world
think that I think that there are
currently-
just I think there are people who do evil things and people who do good things. I think that animals generally aren't moral agents. I don't think that they do good or evil things. I think that they just do things.
Yeah, well, there are definitely influences. There's influences of good and evil, and I think that it has a lot to do with energies and spirits, and the reason being is that just look at how the constellations affect the.
I'm sorry, Mikey. I'm sorry. It's rude. I'm kicking you off. I am so tired. I just can't anymore. I can't. Like I just don't want to do that anymore. I wanna just. I need to go drink some coffee or something. Like. All right, y'all. I am gonna end the live. I'll be live again tomorrow, hopefully less tired, with Ask a Physicist at the normal time, around 9 or so. So stop by around 9, and I'll see you guys there. Before you go, if you want to join the Discord and get announcements about when I go live, when I post new videos, make sure to join the Discord server. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it in the link in the description of the YouTube video. If you're watching on TikTok, you can go to the link tree in my bio. There will be a link to the Discord there. If you're going from the link tree in my bio, you have to copy and paste the link into a browser. Clicking on it won't work for whatever reason. Anyway, I'm going to read three super chats, and then we're going to call it a day, okay? So from Stinky Ethian, happy 23 months. Happy 23 months, Stinky Ethian. Thank you. From Peter Hegwood with the $10. Blitz, thank you for making my workday better. Always looking forward to your lives. Well, I appreciate that. It's very cute. And then from Super Pizza with the $2, the best proof of God, alien orbs. Absolutely true. And Quentin with the membership 1, I don't actually know what that means, but thank you. I know that that costs money, so thank you for doing it. All right, y'all, I'm going to end the live here. Thank you guys for watching me stumble through being tired. I'll see you guys next time.